Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is sent to High School DxD. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Raptor Fanfiction and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Story start. 2 years. For 2 years almost nobody bothered him at all, which sucked because that meant that he had not been rescued for 2 years of being trapped in a world that he had no knowledge of at all. He stayed in put and barely moved from where he had landed, but alas, in the end, nobody had come to bring him back to his home dimension. The only thing that happened were random people coming to fight him. He didn't kill them, he just beat them up just enough to make them give on fighting him, and then he healed them up enough to allow them to escape from him. He had a few women that came to fuck him, but he just turned them away politely, and that usually led to a fight as well, where he turned them away not so politely. Sorry ladies, but Uzumaki Naruto is not into emotionless fucking, I prefer girls who want to build a life together. This 21-year-old man is not cheap, I demand I'm lonely. Naruto complained as he talked to his reflection in the calm water he was sitting on. Nobody had come to fight, fuck him in weeks, and he didn't want to stray from where he was too far. If a portal opened up and he wasn't there to walk through it, then there was no telling when another one would open up. I'm also getting sick of seafood. Naruto near a beach, and it was no problem for him to just have a sobu inside of him make fresh water. He was getting sick and tired of having to stay on a beach and go for seafood. Then go do something, nobody is coming at this point. Your chakra is too massive for them to not be able to pinpoint the exact dimension you're in. Last time you were separated from Sasuke and Sakura, they opened a portal with a beta right to the dimension you were in. 2 years have passed, they aren't coming. Kurama inside of him spoke up. Naruto sighed and hung his head. Yeah, they might be dead, in which case I'm just stuck. Naruto agreed as he laid back. -3 weeks later, just because he knew nobody was coming for him, didn't mean he had to move from where he was right away either. Naruto laid against the ground, and when people came to fight him, he accepted the challenge and beat them back. The ground around him was scared by dozens of battles that had been happening more frequently, and some people just kept coming back for more and more punishment. The white dragon armor kid needed to stop coming and picking fights. He was lucky as it was to survive the first time when Naruto used his own chakra to stop the kid from exploding. The kid had nearly killed himself by stealing some of his chakra, and the chakra overload had almost caused him to explode. Uzumaki Naruto. Are you here to try and fight me, or fuck me? Naruto rubbed the back of his head as he sat up. He was getting more and more freaky visitors, a group of people claiming to be heroes, a group of people claiming to be devils, some freaks with black wings. A strange kitty girl with an entire black cat theme to her had tried to fight and fuck him, so he kicked her ass twice and sent her on her way. Yet, she came back 3 more times since the first time and had continued to get her ass kicked. He didn't bother learning the names of anyone who had come to fight him. I am here to test you. A silver-haired maid. Naruto made her sweat when he looked at her, and he just gave her a glare. He sent her a thumbs up, but what he did was a lot more menacing than simply a thumbs up. He charged up his chakra and allowed it to run rampant around his body, causing boulders to lift out of the ground and float. The woman's body was crushed under the pressure, and her knees were visibly buckling. The density of his chakra filled the entire area, and she just wasn't powerful enough to really do anything when he gave her his thick killing intent-filled chakra. I pass. Naruto stated as he laid back down and relaxed his chakra, lowering his thumbs up. The maid nodded. Yes, I have been asked to offer you a job. Not interested in a job, I'm just going to relax. Unless you plan to pay men a lot of money for this job. How does 100 million yen a day sound? Graia offered Naruto. He looked at her with amusement. I have no idea what yen, so I don't know how much you're offering. Clearly, it's a very large amount, but is it large enough for you to hire me? Naruto asked, since that sounded like a very large amount. He was interested in why it was by the day, but overall, he couldn't care less about a job that paid well if it was a job he had no interest in doing. So, you want a person dead, a group of people dead? Oh, let me guess, you want me to impregnate a group of powerful women? I'm not interested in any of those things. Naruto had no desire to be used by corrupt people for no personal gain to himself. Just do it, you've been bored for 2 years. Kurama told him from inside of his mind. Naruto just smiled in agreement. I will hear you out though. You are being offered the chance to teach a group of young devils combat over the course of 10 days. They have an important competition coming up and need all the help they can get. Graia simply explained what he was being offered a job to do. Naruto scratched the back of his head in confusion. That's it? Yes, that is all. The man who wishes to contract you does not think that this group has a very high chance of winning their competition. He wishes to hire somebody strong enough to train them, but neutral enough to not ask questions. Graia had never thought a person would be able to fit the conditions. 1. Powerful. 2. Neutral to all sides. 3. unknown to most people. 4. Experienced. She could sense his power, and it was a power that had seen countless battles in a short time. Battles that she could hardly imagine for herself. She had never sensed somebody who had a power like him, or had a power as strong as him. She knew his name because the rumors of a guy that had been hanging out at this exact spot for 2 years and had been undefeated by everyone who had challenged him was becoming well known amongst the strongest people of their world. Just training a group of brats? Naruto asked as he stood up and shook the dirt off himself. This was interesting to say the least. Just training them for up to the number of days I gave you. You can train them from 1 to 10 days and you may use whatever non-lethal methods you see fit. Graia explained how much freedom he would have to train the group. And I cause them pain and bring them to near death so long as I heal them. That is a very worrying statement. Graia admitted with a frown. He worded that very accurately, meaning that he had a plan and he knew that what he was going to do was going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And I force them to cry, sweat, bleed and maybe puke. I think you might not be the correct man for the job. Graia was rapidly changing her mind on if this was a good man to pay to tutor the group or not. He was saying things that were very worrying to her on a personal level, and the fact that he had added puke onto the list of things that he was going to do to them just meant that he had expectations. Very dark ones at that, expectations for levels of suffering that she didn't want to imagine the group going through. They won't die, and I wouldn't dream of causing any permanent physical damage. If all you need is a combat couch, I actually don't see a problem with that. Naruto stated as he started to stretch himself out. Just teaching some brats combat. He was a taijutsu teacher at the ninja academy well before he got sent on a mission to the moon, and he had been a teacher for a short time, but he had still been a teacher. He had experience teaching, and he actually enjoyed it to some degree. If all he had to do was get some rookies some experience and knowledge, then there was no reason for him to refuse such a generous offer. That is oddly specific. I cannot promise that this training won't leave them with lifelong mental scars, and honestly, I might be a regular part of their nightmares in the future. Naruto admitted that the training was going to be very harsh. Harsh, but completely realistic and not sadistic. It would just be harsh, hard, and brutal training. The kind of training that could absolutely cram a ton of basics and experience down the throats of the unlucky victims of the training. A kind of training that he himself had received on the battlefield many times. I am not amused by. Graia heard a voice, but before she could see who was speaking, Naruto flashed right by her and punched the speaker in the face with a glowing golden fist. Her eyes widened when a black blur went flying high into the sky and instantly out of sight. Naruto whistled and looked out into the distance, a grin on his face. Okay, that one got some distance. I wonder how long it will take her to recover from that one and how far she is going to go. Naruto grinned as he looked way into the distance. The person he punched had already gone at least halfway across the planet at this point. I really put some distance on that one. I'm trying to see how far I can punch that goth loli without killing her. Naruto explained. She was one hell of a durable goth loli, she could take a punch better than anyone who fought him so far. Since he didn't want to kill her, he started to have fun with it. He punched her hard enough to defeat her by knocking her out cold, but not hard enough to kill her. He also made sure to send her flying at an angle so that she would go as far as possible without being sent into space. He was having fun, since she was durable to survive the landing, unlike most people he wanted to punch that way. What? There is this goth loli that likes to bug me, so I punch her as far away as I can without sending her to space. Last time I punched a full-grown man all the way across the moon, so with her smaller body, I want to see how far I can punch her without killing her. Naruto had that limit, he had to punch her just hard enough to knock her out without killing her. That meant he had to limit himself on not going full power or blowing her head off her shoulders. He had to really aim just perfectly, hit the perfect sweet spot, and then put a spin on it. Goth loli what? Don't know her name, forgot it, but this goth loli hag. Goth loli hag. Her true age is way older than what she looks, she's an old lady, but still, kind of cute overall. She talks tough, and she's the strongest fighter I've met so far in this place. Naruto would give compliments where they were due. She was a cutie, though she could do herself a favor and cover up her tiny bee a little more. She only covered her nipple with black X pasties, and that was it. Her shape of her nipples was visible through them, which meant that other than the color of her nips, she was leaving nothing to the imagination. She's stubborn, she'll be back, and I'll see how much further I can punch her. Still, I don't really know how far I'm punching her until she tells me. I can only guess. I just know that she at least goes halfway across the planet. Durable goth loli. Naruto extended his hand to Graia. She didn't shake his hand, she just gave him a polite bow. Well then, if you will follow me. The sooner we leave, the sooner we can arrive. Wah! Graia shouted in actual surprise, her cheeks turning bright red. Naruto picked her up like a princess. Just tell me where to go. What do you They vanished in less than a blink of an eye, too fast for Graia to do anything but scream at the top of her lungs at the shocking speed. She had simply never moved faster in her life, and she never expected to move faster. She watched the ground underneath them vanish, and in another instant, they were running over the ocean. In literal seconds, they had crossed whatever country that they had been on and were not running over the top of the ocean. It wasn't until they went over the ocean and hit land and started to cross another continent that she realized that he was crossing land faster than the speeding of lightning itself. The black blur slammed into the ground next to them as they ran, but they were going so fast that Graia couldn't see what had hit the ground before it was too far away for her to see. Ahahaha. The goth loli landed right by us. Naruto laughed as he looked behind them. So I could call that a little more than halfway this time. He's insane. Graia's hair had come undone. Her clothes were being ripped up by the speed they were going, yet somehow his clothes seemed to be perfectly fine. It was like the clothes that he was wearing were made with so much durability in mind that even these insane speeds hardly amounted to anything to them. They increased in speed. She saw his eyes grow rings around them and turn yellow with bar-shaped pupils, and he looked at her for a second. He went full speed and started to go across everywhere that he could find. Then they stopped moving. We're here. Graia rolled out of his arms and onto the ground. She noticed a red glow around her body, healing her and protecting her. Her clothes were horribly damaged by the speed that they had reached. What was that? Sorry, I figured using Sage mode to find the last person I could sense with your energy on them would be faster than direction. Still, going full speed with Sage mode makes me even faster than the Raikage. Not many people can handle going faster than light, so I was using my power to make you more durable and heal the damage. Naruto apologized to her. Even when Tsunade had gone light speed during the war using that technique, she had been required to heal her body, while the Raikage's body had been practically unscratched by it thanks to how he was already capable of moving nearly that fast. He figured this woman would be less durable than Tsunade was and that she might not have healing abilities, so he started to heal her the second he reached those speeds. They had reached their destination. Graia. A red-haired girl quickly approached Graia. So that is her name, Naruto thought as he noticed a group of teens, with the red-haired girl being the one that had Graia's energy signature on her. Naruto put his hands in his pockets as he looked over each of the teens, all of them dressed in casual hiking gear, standing in front of a mansion in the middle of mountainous woods. I'm okay. Graia used magic to restore her clothes and quickly fixed her hair before she stood up with a neutral look on her face once more. She was visibly shaken though, but she returned to neutrality very well, all things considered. Lady Rias, I have brought a tutor for your peerage. Tutor, did my brother hire you to help train my peerage? Rias approached Naruto with a slightly suspicious look in her eyes. She was quite beautiful. I have no clue who hired me or what a peerage is. I just know I'm being paid a lot of money to be a combat teacher for your little group. So you are. Who is she? Naruto asked as he poked Rias in the forehead. She stepped back in shock for a moment and stared at Graia. This man has defeated the White Dragon Emperor several times, the SS-ranked criminal Koka several times, and has defeated Cabal as in straight combat. This man is Uzumaki Naruto. A pleasure to meet you, sir. Rias had actually heard of this man from her brother. Graia didn't need to explain who he was for her to know this man by name. This man was famous for the people he had defeated, all of them having sought him out to challenge or breed with him. There was a sense of excitement in the air. You defeated Koka. Which one was Koka? Naruto asked the small white-haired girl when she came forward and asked him that question with a stunned look. I don't ask for a lot of names, so which ones am I training? Naruto asked Rias as he got a good look at the group. Rias was now all for the training tutor. Yes, since Asia is a healer and a mage-type fighter, I think she should train with a Keno. That will leave you with Kaneko, Issei, and Yudo. These three. Issei has the boosted gear sacred gear. Rias started before she stopped when Naruto put his hand on top of her head and grinned. I don't need to hear their abilities, what they are good at. My lesson plan will be the same. You don't mind harsh, unforgiving, painful training, do you? Naruto asked Rias, since this was her group that was about to get trained. I welcome it. Please, as long as you do not permanent physical harm, please feel welcome to train them however you see fit for the entire 10 days if you wish. Rias welcomed her peerage being put through the harshest of training. The harsher the training, the stronger her peerage, and the better the results would be in the end. 7 days. I only need 7 days to get them up to snuff. They can use the last 3 days to rest after I'm done, they will be asleep for 2 days anyway. Naruto watched as all 3 of the people he was going to be training gulped. 7 days. Okay, and might I ask what this training will entail? I'm going to fight them for 7 days and nights. Don't worry brats, whenever you run out of stamina, I'll give you some of mine and I'll heal you whenever I get you close to death. So for 7 days, you don't need to worry about food or your stamina or anything like that, just do your best to fight me with the best of your ability. Naruto pounded his fist into his palm. But this sounds like a bad idea. He's going to kill us. Haneko was the only one who remained silent, she just stared at Naruto. She placed her fist into her palm and bowed her head to him, accepting that she was going to get harsh training. Riaz placed a gentle hand on top of her head, since she fully understood why Kaneko was more serious about the training than the others. "You can make me stronger than Kuroka in 7 days?" Kaneko asked, before she was poked in the forehead. Naruto poked Issei and Yuudo in the forehead as well. Their bodies glowed the most light of reds possible as he connected his chakra to their bodies, so that he could heal them whenever he hurt them and restore their stamina with his chakra. He made sure that they wouldn't be able to use his chakra to enhance themselves though, so that they could only fight him with their own powers. Naruto then wrapped his arms around the trio and lifted them up. "See you guys later, Riaz, follow the sounds of violence in 7 days, and you can see their improvements." Naruto told her as he vanished in the blink of an eye. Let the hellish training begin. Chapter end. Story start. Crack. Kaneko had her neck snapped by a kick to the head that sent her flying, but the second he neck snapped and she had her life flash before her eyes, the injury healed as her body glowed red and red power bubbled around her neck. The life came back to her eyes in an instant and she landed on her feet and was sent back further. Ha ha ha. Kaneko's hand reached up to her neck in shock. She had nearly died, she would have been dead were it not for their tutor healing all of their life-threatening wounds the second they happened. Naruto could sense the second their life flashed before their eyes, and that was the moment he started healing them. Her life had flashed before her eyes dozens of times already, but it didn't get easier for her. Snap, hop. Issei had a fist shoved through his lung as he was sent flying by Naruto throwing him, and Yuudo had his internal organs popped inside of his body. Just the ones that weren't instant death at least, and the life left both of their eyes as quickly as it had her own eyes. Kaneko could see that their lives had already flashed before their eyes, but even as they were sent flying through the air, their wounds healed before they hit the ground. Yuudo regained himself first and landed on his feet, his hands both going to his chest. That hurts, it hurts. Issei landed on his back and grabbed where he had been pierced through the chest. "Come on, we've only been at this for 1 hour, a little over that. There is no surrender and no giving up," Naruto stated as he twirled a dagger around his finger. Yuudo went flying at him with a sword summoned, and as he pulled back to swing, Naruto's foot was put firmly between his eyes. He was stomped into the ground, and his skull was cracked as his head was put into a new crater in the ground. The cracked skull started to heal as Naruto picked Yuudo up and tossed him away, and he landed on his torso, since he was too stunned to land on his feet. Kaneko did a sneak attack. She jumped high into the air and tried to slam both of her fists into the top of Naruto's skull, but he grabbed her by the ankle. She was turned into a ragdoll as he slammed her into the ground and broke every bone in her bone, putting over a dozen craters in the ground around them. The second life started to flash before her eyes, Naruto stopped beating her and tossed her. Her entire body glowed with a bubbling aura as her wounds were healed, and her broken body was restored to full health. NNNNNG. Kaneko stumbled when she landed on her feet, and her entire body froze up. Of all of you, I would say Kaneko understands what fighting is the best. Yuudo, your movements are the fastest and sharpest, but you just aren't putting your soul into this. Naruto clashed dagger against Yuudo's swords. With brute physical force, he shattered the swords as he reached out and gripped them. It was one-sided. How can we beat you? You're stronger than Kaneko-chan, faster than Yuudo, and I totally suck. Issei complained. Complain all you want, but for 7 days, I'm going to keep beating combat into your skulls. Naruto stated as he opened his arms. He allowed Yuudo to stab him. Yuudo's sword went all the way through his body, right through his gut, and Naruto just grabbed Yuudo's face and threw his body away. Naruto grabbed the sword in his gut and pulled it out before he tossed it to the ground. See, that is bullshit. Issei shouted. You have to learn to deal with pain. Be it somebody shoving a fist through you, stabbing you, burning you, crushing you, electrocuting you, drowning you, breaking your bones, or whatever else. You can't win if you let a little pain stop you. Naruto took his jacket off and tossed it to the ground, showing his shirtless torso and how the wound on his body was already completely healed. He wiped the blood off and extended his arms and gestured to Kaneko to hit him dead center in the chest. She took a swing at him. He punched her in the jaw and knocked her into the dirt. Her upper body sank into the ground, with her lower body sticking out of the ground like a plant. Naruto grabbed her by the foot and yanked her right out of the ground. Graia. Issei psyched himself up by shouting and charged Naruto. You're the worst of everyone here. You have no form, your punches pack no punch, you don't know how to throw a good punch. Naruto used the dazed Kaneko as a sword and attacked Issei with her, knocking the weakest opponent to the ground. He then rushed Yuudo and slammed Kaneko against him like a hammer. All 3 opponents were on the ground as Naruto let go of Kaneko. Their bodies glowed and their wounds were healed. Bathroom break. Issei shouted. Nope. Naruto punched Issei in the stomach and the boy was sent flying into the river. There was an uncomfortable sound that came from the back of his shorts, since he and Yuudo were wearing shorts and Kaneko's skirt. He was launched into the water and Naruto jumped after him as the other two realized what was happening to Issei. Kaneko paled. Surprise attacks, let's go hide to surprise attack. Kaneko turned around to go and use the bathroom before what happened to Issei happened to her as well. She turned around and she found herself paling even more when her face touched Naruto's chest. Naruto was holding Issei by his neck. Don't worry, I'll aim for the river. Naruto kneed her in the stomach and caused her to collapse to her knees. Don't have to go to the bathroom or holding it in. Naruto asked her as he slammed his fist into Yudo's stomach. He didn't shit his shorts like Issei, but the dark stain that grew showed that he had pissed himself. Naruto kicked Yudo into the river. Hold it and don't pee yourself. Kaneko was kicked in the stomach and sent flying into the river as well. Naruto threw Issei back into the river as well, and the three young devils were all stuck in the water as Naruto waited for them, patient by his standards, to clean themselves up in the rushing water. When they came out of the water, Naruto tossed them a change of their gym clothes and underwear. You have 15 seconds to get changed before the training starts again starting now. Yep. Issei screamed as for the first time in his life, he was less concerned with a hot naked girl changing next to him and more concerned about getting changed into unstained clothes. The trio were changing as fast as they possibly could while Naruto closed his eyes and counted out loud to them. Yudo changed first. Before Naruto was finishing counting, he summoned a sword and rushed at Naruto. Naruto had his eyes closed, but he grinned and caught the sword and shattered it. He peeked at Yudo through the slits of his eyes opening slightly. Kaneko jumped over Yudo and threw a kick at Naruto, but he grabbed her leg, slammed her into the ground, and put his foot on the center of her chest so that she couldn't breathe properly. Right now, I'm keeping your stamina at full with my chakra, but you're wasting a lot of stamina by drawing back too much. When you draw your sword or attack back all the way, you waste stamina. Naruto took Issei's punch to the face without stopping. He kicked Issei with his free foot, putting him into the ground. And your attack packs less of a punch. Naruto stomped on Kaneko, slammed his elbow into Issei's neck and chopped Yudo in the throat. Broken ribs, a broken neck and the front of his throat being crushed. The wounds they gained were all life-threatening or extreme, and once more as Naruto walked away from them, their wounds began healing until their bodies and stamina were restored to full. I quit. No quitting allowed. If you try and run away, I'll catch you and beat you to near death. If you refuse to fight, then I'll beat you to near death. Just stop thinking too much about it and fight me with your body. Naruto turned around and crossed his arms. The trio were getting back to their feet and he saw Issei lose hope for escape when he spoke those words. It hasn't even been 2 hours and Kaneko here has already shown improvement. Her life didn't flash before her eyes that time. Naruto gestured to Kaneko. She stood up and spat some blood out of her mouth before she put her fists up. Yudo slowly stepped towards Naruto. He didn't run at full speed this time. He gave a half-pulled swing at Naruto. He didn't pull his arms back nearly as much as he did before. Naruto shattered the sword and punched him in the nose. My sword swing was faster that time. It was a fraction of a second faster, but still faster, Yudo thought as he held his broken nose with a quick groan, summoning a replacement sword and pulling back to swing it. Naruto punched him in the chest a lot harder when he did that though, and he collapsed to his back and tried to catch his breath. The second I make a mistake, he punishes me without telling me. I see this training isn't sadistic, it's downright genius, Yudo groaned as he wiped the blood from his mouth. He glanced and saw Issei throw a punch at Naruto. Naruto shoved his fist inside of Issei's stomach, piercing his body and putting him onto the ground. The life had left Issei's eyes and returned when his body was healed once more, and Kaneko had used that brief second to attack Naruto from a possible blind spot. He isn't training us, no, he is, but more importantly Kaneko saw her life flash before her eyes and she ducked and rolled to the side. She cancelled her punch. The second she felt danger, she tried her best to escape the danger. She saw a kick fly at where her neck had been, and the Naruto she had been attacking had been just his image. He had been behind her too fast for her to register, and it was only the danger she felt that let her know. He's teaching our bodies how to fight. They couldn't die. He wasn't going to kill them, and any wounds that could kill them were being healed before they could do that. He was also restoring their stamina as the fight went on, so that they were never going to have to take breaks. He was removing their need to eat as well, and whenever they seemed to be getting thirsty, he knocked the air out of them and put them into the river to get a quick drink. He was mentally exhausting them so that he could teach their bodies directly the best lessons, correcting their worst fighting habits. When they made a mistake, he attacked them more harshly, and when they did something he approved of, his attacks weren't nearly as deadly. This feels like life or death, I hate it. Issei complained as he stood back up. Good, you're figuring it out. Naruto left it at that as he slammed his bicep into Issei and shoulder slammed him into a tree, breaking bones and putting Issei on the ground. Yudo attacked from behind the tree, cutting the tree down with a swing of his sword. It was a good surprise attack from Yudo, but all it did was end with Yudo on the ground over 100 feet away as Naruto palmed him in the center of the chest. Trust me, this isn't normal training. Now stand up and keeping right. Naruto didn't even explain to them himself. He left it at that once more. The next second, Naruto kicked the training up another notch by increasing the difficulty against them even more. Now his attacks were starting to pack more of a punch, his speed was increasing, and he was using more skill against them. Snap, crackle, pop. In less than a second, all three of them were put into a near-death state once more by attacks two of them could barely even see coming. Kaneko's limp body was hanging off a tree branch, while Issei was in a crater, and Yudo was bent into an awkward position as his body was in a bush. I sensed the attack coming, but I wasn't even able to dodge it, Kaneko thought as she fell out of the tree and landed on her feet, her body healed back to full health. She saw Issei and Yudo heal up moments later and pull themselves to their feet. When one of you adjusts to the current level of beating, I'm upping the level for all of you by the way. What? Yep. Basically, nobody gets left behind here. Either you catch up to your allies or suffer as you're left behind. In a real fight, you have to adapt to a changing situation on the spot and overcome those challenges or you die. Naruto clapped his hands together before he popped his knuckles. By the way, we just reached the 2-hour point, so 166 hours to go. Naruto gave them the time for how long their training had left. This is insane, this is sadistic. It's not sadistic, he's attacking us with a level of strength that we can handle. His attacks only hurt us for a few moments before he heals us. It's insane and it's scary but it's really scary. Yudo had a nervous sweat. He could see the benefits, but the fact didn't change that this wasn't training. This was experience. This was truly what it was like to face off against an opponent that was stronger than you, but strong enough that if you pushed yourself hard enough, you could overcome the challenge. Naruto was purposely going at them with only enough strength that if they pushed themselves to their limits and beyond, they could grow. He was also healing their wounded and torn muscles, so slowly but surely, their bodies were going to grow stronger as well as they pushed themselves. This was a type of training that could only be experienced through genuine life or death battle. This was war. This was the battle experience of a man who had been through war, somebody who had fought against challenge after challenge all his life and overcome every challenge through sheer willpower and dumb luck. This was a genuinely frightening experience, and the first step to overcoming it was to overcome the fear that the training inspired. I'm not afraid of this, because Kaneko hyped herself up. She was punished for it. Issei was punished for it too when he boosted himself up during the split second and he reached his full power once more. He had stayed back for a moment and Naruto slammed an elbow into his back hard enough to knock out all of the boosted power from him. The blow was strong enough to put his body into critical condition and reset the boosts. You can boost yourself, but it only lasts for as long as your body and stamina last. Right now, you won't run out of stamina thanks to me. Boost to your heart's content, but don't think I'm going to let you reach full strength again. Naruto told Issei as he flipped him over onto his back. He ducked a sword slash from Yudo, spun around and grabbed the front of his shirt before flipping him and slammed him into Issei. 7 days. 168 hours of training in total. Not noted, Issei mumbled in pain. Okay. Let's continue. It could only be stated that the first day of training was not the worst day, but it served its purpose to let Naruto allow them to get used to how the training was going to work. Chapter end. Story start. It was an interesting development. It was the third day of non-stop combat and it was visibly wearing them all down. Their bodies had no visible wounds and their stamina was always at full thanks to Naruto, but their mental stamina had drained quite a lot. He was wearing down their ability to stay focused on strategy and planning, which was good. Their growth was also different. Issei had barely grown in strength, it took him the longest to get used to the training whenever he kicked it up a notch. That was to say, his base level was just so low that by the time Kaneko or Yudo picked up the level to the next notch, Issei had yet to catch up to the level before. He would say it like this. When they started. Kaneko. Level 1. Yudo. Level 1. Issei. Level 1. They all started at the same base training, and though some of them were clearly stronger than others at the start, he was giving them the same level of training in total. Yudo wasn't too far behind Kaneko when she jumped them up to level 2 combat training, and when Yudo got ahead of Kaneko, she wasn't too far behind. When Kaneko or Yudo had caused them to go up to level 4 combat, Issei was just getting up to level 2. Now it was like this. Kaneko. Level 6. Yudo. Level 9. Issei. Level 2. Now that was not to say Kaneko was 7 times stronger than when she began, that was not the case. He was just keeping the level system in his head to mark their overall progress and how quickly they were getting stronger at any rate. Kaneko has started to reach a barrier that is preventing her from going any further than this, while Yudo is being driven by something dark enough that it is pushing him forward, and Issei is scrapping by the skin of his teeth, Naruto thought with a laid-back smile. Issei was going to have to suck in his gut and really give it his all soon. He was giving it his best, but if Naruto wanted him truly dead, he would have been dead by this point. Still, improvements were improvements, and Issei was getting to the point where he, in theory, would have been at the third level of combat to some degree. Now remember, don't do this training with anyone but me. The requirements for this training are an opponent that can heal you and hold back against you. Naruto put Yudo into another near-death state before he slammed his hand into Issei's face and broke his neck once more, and he did both of them with a clear move. Kaneko threw a boulder at Naruto, and he shattered it, grabbed a rock from the air, and launched it at her fast enough that she was launched backwards when it hit her stomach. The rock sank into her slightly, and it was pushed out of her body when his healing took place. In moments, the trio were back on their feet. This is insane, I hate this, but no matter how much, why couldn't you be a hot woman? Why couldn't you have nice titties? I might actually be able to do something, I might get that spark I need. Issei shouted with tears of rage in his eyes. Sorry about him. He's a pervert. Kaneko deadpanned as Yudo apologized. The two of them had expected this outburst far sooner than this. As it were, the mental weakening they were all going through had taken a toll on them all mentally. It was only Naruto's chakra that kept them in perfect health that allowed them to stay on their feet. Naruto tapped his finger to his cheek. Well, I guess it wouldn't hurt to tell you this male form I'm taking. Technically I can also take on a female form, but I only do it against really powerful opponents, and my girl form has really big B. Naruto gestured with some teasing, not completely lying or telling the truth. Issei froze. 3 days of mental weakening had taken to him, and he had been pushed beyond his limit. Latent magical power burst forth from his body as he gave a loud roar of enthusiasm and newfound determination. I will see that form. Come on, sacred gear, give me power. Give me everything to see and humiliate this bastard's girl form. Kaneko and Yudo palmed their faces. They could agree with the sentiment, but they couldn't help but feel ashamed of Issei as his motivation burst forth from the most simple of base desires. I see, so the conditions are set. Okay Issei, use this chance. I'll keep your stamina filled for you, and I'll keep healing your damaged body. Go for it. Naruto crossed his arms. Issei's body glowed. Red dragon armor covered his body moments later, green glowing eyes from under the helmet of the armor, and red dragon wings came out of the back of the armor. It was his balance breaker, and it had manifested. Issei being pushed to the point of death endlessly over the course of days, being forced into a mentally weakened state, humiliated, and then told about the sexy form, had been too much for him. It had truly pushed him into achieving the next level of his sacred gear. His sacred gear started to chant boosts. Issei reached his full power. He charged Naruto, but Naruto still caught his fist and punched him in the stomach, cracking the armor and revealing his stomach to the world. Naruto healed Issei, and the armor repaired in response to this as well. Still, Naruto sent Issei flying back before he rushed towards Yudo and shattered one of his swords, and he kicked Kaneko in the side of the head. The two of them were knocked far back, harder than before. Does this mean Issei surpassed us? Yudo thought in shock when he and Kaneko were both placed into the near-death state once more. Naruto used more speed and power than before, and neither of them had kept up with it. Issei rushed at Naruto from behind. Your form is still sloppy, but you're throwing punches better now. Naruto dodged it, and he broke Issei's extended arm before snapping his neck with a punch that sent him into the air. Issei, Kaneko, and Yudo were all healed before Issei had time to hit the ground and were getting back to their feet. This was the kind of training that got results, it would seem. -17 hours later, it had changed. Issei's balance breaker had taken him to 2 levels above Yudo's level in an instant, but that was about it. His skill as a fighter was still growing slower, but he was managing to at least grow physically better than Yudo or Kaneko purely in that aspect. Yudo was managing to keep up with Issei's growth to some degree, though it was mostly slower overall. Kaneko was being left behind. Now it was. Kaneko. Level 6. Yudo. Level 11. Issei. Level 12, balance breaker. Still, Kaneko had not been weakened enough mentally to shatter the limits that she was placing on herself. Naruto could see the intense internal struggle inside of her. If it were not for that struggle, she could have been on par with Yudo's growth by the point they were at. Yudo was growing the least in physical strength, but he was sharpening his skills overall, which allowed him to keep up, and Issei was increasing his raw ability and combat power overall, but Kaneko was increasing neither as much. So now she was the one who was getting beaten to near death the fastest. Even the pervert as Kaneko could barely think properly. She took a hit to the stomach that had Naruto's fist go through her body and come out her back before he grabbed her face and threw her right off his arm. While Yudo and Issei rushed at Naruto from either side with a punch and slash, he caught the punch and used Issei's arm to block the slash. When Issei turned around and went for a second punch, that was when Naruto increased the level of training again. Issei did not like that. Now they were at combat level 13. The pain every time. I think I get used to this pain. He finds a way to make it hurt even worse. Yudo was nearly cut in half by Naruto's hand. He was only connected by his spine, and even though his body was rapidly healing, this was the worst level of injury that he had received yet. He scrambled to his feet. Kaneko slammed her fist into the ground when she saw Yudo quickly recover, and she saw Issei quickly recovering as well. She was being left behind. MREOW. Kaneko roared as she lost it. She broke. She was too exhausted, white cat ears grew from her head, and she rushed at Naruto, white flames gathering around her that she sent flying at Naruto. She had little control over them, but she still sent them at him. He swiped them away with his hand, just as a tail came out from her rear. She took a jab at him, and though most of her physical abilities stayed the same, her movements were sharper, more agile than before. She had more balance, and her magical abilities grew as well, and her speed got a small boost. Now we are talking. Naruto grinned when he saw he finally wore her down. She wasn't thinking clearly, because her mind was too exhausted for her to be able to think clearly about what she was doing. He blocked 2 jabs, and she spun to kick him, but her kick was a fake. She pulled her leg back and moved into a spinning punch. He just knocked it to the side and punched the top of her head, and her chin hit the ground with a crack, and he kicked her to Yudo as he ripped Issei a new one with a punch to the chest. Issei's balance breaker. Kaneko's mental limiter broken. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of you, I'll kill you. Kaneko went back on the offense instantly. The second her body was healed she was back on the offense. She put all of her intent to kill into her blows. Good. Naruto shouted as he blocked her hits with the back of his hands. He backhanded her and knocked her away, blocked a punch from Issei and knocked him into the ground, and shattered Yudo's sword with a punch that he continued and hit the boy in the face. Kaneko was already back on her feet though, and took a swipe at him. She made use of his punch at Yudo, and that was her opening. He jumped over her swipe and stomped her into the ground. Gotcha. Kaneko grabbed onto his leg, even as blood spewed from her mouth. Yudo was already getting back to his feet, sword in hand, and Issei was already next to Naruto with a punch ready. Naruto smiled when he saw the most basic teamwork, the first teamwork that he had seen during the days that he had spent training them. Their attacks were closing in, and Kaneko pointed her hand at Naruto and sent a white fireball right at him to add to the mix. It was a burst of speed. Issei and Yudo were defeated again and blasted back, and Kaneko ate her own fireball when it was sent flying back at her and blew right up against her. All of them were blasted away, and Naruto stood unscathed with a wide smile on his face, a glint to his eye. Now this is progress. Now, keep coming at me with the intent to kill. It's the only way you're going to improve at this point. Now back on your feet. Naruto ordered as he healed them all instantly. Fear. It was the first time they had truly understood the meaning of the word when they realized that they were now seeing Naruto do something that he had not done the entire time they were training. He took a stance. This entire time Yudo realized as a cold sweat broke out over his body, his eyes widened when he realized just how easy Naruto had been taking it on them. Something that they had never noticed, all of his attacks had taken place as a counter-attack, and Naruto had not truly taken an attacking stance. His attacks came from a relaxed position. Just how much has he been holding back? Even Issei could realize just how much trouble they were in. The training is going to continue like it has been, don't worry, I won't kill you, but now I'm going to say this, my attacks are really going to hurt. Naruto gave fair warning. They were defeated. They were healed. They were defeated and then healed again in less than a second, before they even had the time to fully register that they were being defeated. That was the difference, so Yudo slapped his hand on the ground, and blades started to shoot from it, and Kaneko peppered the ground around her with punches to knock rocks into the air. She started to combo attack the rocks and send them flying towards her enemy, and she rained down fireballs with those rocks. He weaved through them, punched Issei when he got too close, and exchanged blades with Yudo for half a second before beating him, and then appeared in front of her. Now that your minds have been weakened, pull out your fighting spirit and strengthen them. Maintain this level of focus, guts. Naruto shouted as he attacked Kaneko right in her guts. Be gutsy. Never give up and attack with all you have. Be completely and utterly gutsy and your skills will improve. You'll grow stronger and you'll shatter the limits you thought you had. Naruto roared his teaching to them. This is a completely different level. Issei was implanted into a boulder. Just how much did he suffer to get to this point? Yudo could feel Naruto's heart through his fists, and they were fists born from suffering. I can go further. Good, go further, but it's not going to be enough. Just because you say you can go further doesn't mean you have the guts to back that up. Let's see those guts. Guts, courage, teamwork, the will to never give up, and something precious to protect. If you have all of these, then you've got what you need to get stronger. Naruto roared as he punched Kaneko right in the cheek and knocked her face into Yudo's face and carried both of their faces into Issei's face. I need B. Then the precious thing you want to protect is B, super stupid, but whatever works for you. Naruto didn't understand it, but whatever that Issei found precious to him worked as a precious something to protect. Naruto's words erased the fear in their hearts. Even as they got their asses kicked, smiles couldn't help but work their way onto the trio's faces as his words ranged throughout their bodies. The training was just getting started. Chapter end. Start. 7 days had passed. Riaz was curious now, she had avoided answering her curiosity for all 7 days and didn't even use her familiar to spy on the training. She had patiently waited as she trained by herself, basic physical and magical training, and studied. She studied Riser's peerage via his previous raiding game recordings, and she had been making battle plans for each of them. So she was following the sounds of violence. She was astounded when she did arrive. The first thing she saw was Issei clad in dragon armor, the balance breaker for the boosted gear, which on its own was a massive improvement to her peerage and Issei's personal strength. That was the very first thing that she couldn't help but notice, but it wasn't the only improvement. Then there was Kaneko. She was covered in a light yellow aura across her entire body, and her nekashu features were on full display. Riaz could only watch with widened eyes as the girl had not one tail, but 2 tails behind her, and cat ears. She was covering her body with her very life force, her Tauki was being wielded like a weapon. Riaz had seen a similar way to use Tauki before, but she had never once expected that Kaneko would ever shed the fear she had and actually use her natural heritage. She was using Senjutsu to do this, that was how she was doing it. Udo was even faster, and he was using swords that had more weight to them. That alone meant that his physical strength had improved to the point that he could wield even more powerful swords without hindering his speed and skill. The improvements to her peerage might seem small at first, but the fact was that it was amazing. Riaz watched them fight. Issei was attacking with force that she herself couldn't physically compete with, and with speed that was nearly as fast as Udo. Bruo. Naruto blocked a punch from Issei as white fireballs peppered the ground and kicked up dust, blocking his vision. Udo took a half swing at him from inside the dust, clearing the dust and getting Naruto to duck. Naruto grabbed Issei and Udo's wrists to stop their next attacks when Kaneko got behind him. So fast she was never slow, but wow. The aura around her fist increased and Naruto let go of Issei and Udo. Kaneko actually crossed her arms in front of her before the attack even came, and she blocked a punch that was strong enough to destroy the ground behind her. Udo summoned a second sword and swung them together, while Issei put his hands on the ground to give Udo the freedom to swing his swords. He kicked with both of his legs to aim at Naruto's knees. Kaneko jumped above where Udo would be slashing and aimed at Naruto's head from above, preventing him from jumping to dodge Issei or ducking to dodge Udo. She pointed her hand and shot fireballs behind Naruto to cut off his escape. Naruto grabbed one of Kaneko's fireballs and tossed it at Udo, grabbed Kaneko with his other hand and tossed her at Issei. Udo jumped back and dodged the fireball, while Issei rolled and avoided Kaneko as the girl twisted her body and used her tails to balance herself, landing on her feet. Wow. Riaz couldn't stop herself. They had all improved so much. Kaneko and Issei had improved the most as far as physical abilities and unlocking more abilities, but she would not discount the fact that Udo had improved his strength, speed, and his skills had become sharper. For a knight like Udo, those improvements were among the most important because even small improvements made the most difference. Kaneko and Issei are even stronger than me now, amazing. Riaz couldn't see herself beating either Kaneko or Issei in their current conditions, which meant that both of them had improved to the point that they had exceeded what the normal high-class devil could do. She expected that much from Issei's balance breaker, but she didn't expect Kaneko to reach that level of strength in just a matter of 7 days. Kaneko was nearly as fast as Udo had been before the training, which thanks to her Senjutsu and Tauki, showed just how much her mental limiters had played into weakening her. She couldn't even say it was all that, Kaneko's own skill in combat had increased as well. Then there was Issei, who had started from practically zero. His hand-to-hand skill had increased to the point that he had been as good as Kaneko had been at the start of her training. While there were room for a lot of improvements, that was impressive amounts of improvement. Aura. Kaneko started to chain attacks together. All of them were aimed at Naruto's center, and Issei joined in from the side with a full power kick. Naruto trapped Issei's kick with his arm and used his free hand to block Kaneko's punches. The second a punch was blocked, she withdrew her hand while still continuing on to the next punch. Issei swung his other leg at Naruto, so Naruto took his hand away from Kaneko and blocked the kick. Grrrr. Kaneko growled when Naruto raised his knee up and blocked her next punch and extended his leg. She flipped back and Udo came from behind her, ducking underneath the kick and swinging his sword at Naruto's standing leg. I'm taking that leg. Ooh. Naruto was interested, but he just hopped up and landed on top of Udo's shoulder, letting go of Issei, before he kicked Udo in the chin and followed up by a heel drop to the top of his head. We're still not hitting him, Udo thought as he was knocked to his knee. He used his sword to steady himself. Kaneko jumped off of his back and went after Naruto, and he tossed a sword up to her. She actually grabbed it and she extended her fire onto the sword and took a swing with the flaming blade. She let go of it the second that she missed, and the sword landed on Issei's hands, and he took a swing at Naruto from behind. Their teamwork is amazing, they aren't even talking to each other. Riaz watched as Naruto kicked off of Kaneko and flipped over Issei's slash, kicking Issei in the head as he did so. Naruto landed on his feet, while Kaneko and Issei landed on their backs, but recovered in an instant. Rias watched as all of their injuries were instantly healed, while Naruto dusted himself off. Their trio got back to their feet and got ready to go again. Naruto gave a smirk. And training over. Naruto clapped his hands together. Issei's balance breaker shattered as he dropped to his knees before he passed out. He instantly fell asleep the second that the training was over and he was finally able to rest. Sleeping blissfully with a smile on his face. Kaneko fell backwards and landed on her back, her Taki aura vanishing, and the number of tails she had shrinking from 2 back to 1. She had the same blissful smile on her face in her sleep because it was the first time she had gotten the chance to sleep in 7 days. Finally, Yudo's sword shattered and vanished as he too just passed out where he stood. You taught them so much, thank you for teaching them. Rias bowed to Naruto as he picked up Issei and Kaneko, tossing them over his shoulders. He gestured for her to carry Yudo and she rushed over to her knight's side. I just allowed them to draw on their own power, whatever techniques or skills they learned on their own. Right now, I would say Issei and his balance breaker and Kaneko are about equal in strength, while Yudo is going to need to find a different teacher, more suited to him personally. He stopped seeing benefits from this training 2 days ago. Naruto would admit that Yudo had stopped making overall progress on the 5th day of training. There was something in him that this type of training just didn't help with, a wall that was deep in his soul that needed something to push him. Naruto could increase Yudo's strength and speed and sharpen his skills, but until Yudo broke whatever wall was keeping him limited, his growth had reached a point it couldn't go much higher. How did you get Kaneko and Issei so strong? Guts, I taught them the value of guts, never giving up, protecting something precious, courage, I gave them the tools. But could you teach them techniques too? Rias asked with stars in her eyes. She could only imagine how strong they would grow if Naruto did more than just pull out their own latent potential, but also made it a point to teach them skills. Naruto looked at her for a moment in amusement. I could, but that wasn't the point. Being a good teacher isn't about teaching techniques, it's about teaching a student the lessons they need to succeed on their own. Just like my master gave me the tools I needed to overcome any challenge, I passed those tools down to them. Naruto stated with a grin. His own master, Jiraiya, had focused less on techniques and more on helping him get to the point where he could stand on his own, develop his own techniques, and gave him the tools he needed to survive and thrive on his own. The desire to work hard, never give up, and the guts to push past your limits had helped him become as strong as he was. During the training, in my head, I kept track of their progress by levels. I will tell you, at the moment, Kaneko and Issei are at level 40 in their training difficulty, while Yudo is on level 33. Issei in his base form is at about level 4. It takes Issei 30 seconds to activate his balance breaker, and without being healed or having his stamina refilled, he can maintain it for about 10 minutes. Naruto explained his overall guess on what their abilities were. He had broken Issei's balance breaker many times. He didn't focus on extending the amount of time Issei could maintain his balance breaker, but he did get the time it took to activate it down from 2 minutes at the start to 30 seconds. 10 minutes isn't a lot time. 10 minutes is the amount of time he has if he goes full power and boosts himself to his limit. At half power, he could stay in balance breaker for 30 minutes and using the minimum amount of boosts, he can go for 50 minutes. Naruto explained that as well to Rias. The two of them walked together as they carried her trio to their beds. Okay, that is a lot of time. Rias corrected her statement. Well, at least Kaneko and Issei are 40 times stronger than before. Level 40 doesn't mean they are 40 times stronger, it means that their bodies adjusted to the 39th level of training. Still, as it stands, both of them have grown a lot. Issei's magical power has grown a bit, but his base reserves are still pathetically small. Naruto couldn't teach Issei any techniques even if he wanted to. The fact was that Issei was simply not suited to becoming his apprentice, and Yudo had such a vastly different fighting style when compared to himself that he couldn't teach Yudo anything either. Not that he was going to teach any of them his techniques, they were not his apprentices, they were his students. He was getting paid to teach them, and that was about it. Would you like to stay and watch our rating game to see how they do? Rias asked Naruto politely. I might, unless somebody else wants to hire me to teach their brats. By the way, if you want to hire me in the future, I can teach this brat something about Senjutsu. Naruto spanked Kaneko in her sleep, gently on the butt. The fact she could do a form of Senjutsu that was pretty similar to how he used Senjutsu meant that he could actually show her a thing or two. Only if he was paid though. So, like a private tutor. Exactly, though that will have to wait until after the maid woman gives me my money for these 7 days. Actually, can you spend 2 days tutoring Asia on healing? Have her read a medical book and study. The ability to heal works better the more that you know about healing. My healing abilities don't actually require me to know how to heal. For other healing abilities, the best way to improve them is through spiritual training and mental training. Naruto stated with a wave of his hand. He would give that knowledge to Rias for free, since this was still the 7th day of his teaching and he was still getting paid. It's boring to just watch a girl read a book, I prefer getting hands-on, or at the very least watching them go through real training. Naruto barely considered reading to be training. He did consider it to be real training, but it wasn't a training that he wanted to watch a person do. He would rather watch training where he could see the results of the training happen in real time. Still, surely there is something I can do to reward you. These results are amazing, you didn't just get Issei to balance breaker or got Kaneko to overcome her fears and she is just as strong as a Longinus balance breaker. Well Kaneko didn't have a choice but to get as strong as Issei was getting. This kind of training kind of forces you to get as strong as your comrades. If Kaneko fell behind, she was going to suffer so she had no choice but to keep up. Naruto didn't really consider it that amazing. Kaneko had been forced to grow with her own abilities, while Issei was pretty far behind the others as far as his base form was concerned. Actually, Yudo is the most impressive. Kaneko unlocked hidden potential and Issei unlocked balance breaker, but those abilities aren't their base forms. Yudo kept up with them for a long time before he reached a wall. The fact that Yudo kept up with them all the way to the 33rd level of difficulty and he didn't have anything to increase his physical abilities showed that through sheer guts he managed to keep up with them for so long. Yudo was the most impressive of the three for that fact alone, even if he was now the weakest of the trio overall. Then spending another day on Yudo might be a good idea. Rias was willing to have Yudo train another day. Yudo has reached his limit with this training, I would say he might reach Issei's balance breaker level if he trained like this for several years. He's reached the limit of the results he can gain from this training until he breaks whatever is holding him back, I can't do anything for him. Naruto had reached the limit of how much he could help Yudo grow stronger. He needs to either let go of his revenge or achieve revenge. Until he does either of those things, this is his limit for now. Naruto could see the desire for revenge. So can Kaneko and Issei continue to grow stronger by this training? Rias asked with her eyes shining. Naruto nodded. Way stronger, this training is perfect for them. Issei can benefit from this training, but he needs to learn magical skills to balance his skills out. Kaneko is extremely balanced already, but if she studies in Senjutsu more she can get even more benefit from this. Naruto saw Rias wipe saliva from her mouth as she was hearing that her peerage could grow even stronger and that they could be put through even stronger training. This training won't leave mental scars. Nope. The best part of this training, once you break a certain point, your willpower gets to the point that this kind of training won't leave mental scars. The more you do this training, the less likely you are to suffer from mental scars because your willpower gets stronger. Naruto gave her a thumbs up after he slapped Issei and Kaneko on the asses. Great. Rias sighed in relief. She grinned. I like you Naruto-sensei, if you don't mind, in the near future, we will be getting a month off from school. I would like to hire you again to train Issei and Kaneko during that month. Rias was going to take his advice and not have Yudo train with Naruto, since she fully trusted his judgment on the matter. If my schedule is free, sure school. You guys are teenagers, why are you still attending school? Naruto asked in actual confusion. School stopped for his world at the age of 13. Any studying you did after that was done on your own time, was she saying that in this world, that you were forced to stay in school all the way into your teenage years? Weird. Chapter end. Story start. A rook and a pawn belonging to Riser Phoenix has been retired. This is too easy. Issei saw a chainsaw coming at him and was actually able to dodge it. He was using his balance breaker since his base had barely increased over the training for the most part. He was only using 4 boosts to increase his abilities, so his time limit was nowhere close. He attacked the girl with a punch to the center of her chest and knocked her flying into the wall. The pawn belonging to Riser Phoenix has been retired. That left one pawn in the building for Issei to deal with before he was supposed to go meet up with Yudo to help him with the knights and some of the other pawns. 5 pawns belonging to Riser Phoenix have been retired. 1 bishop and 1 rook belonging to Riser Phoenix have been retired. So Yudo and Kaneko are doing their jobs, which leaves Akeno to take care of the queen and you. Issei looked at the other chainsaw-wielding loli waiting for him and she was visibly freaking out as she heard the rest of her comrades getting retired from the raiding game at record speeds. She was the last pawn remaining, there were no rooks remaining. 1 bishop, 1 queen, and 2 knights were all that remained, well they had everyone in their group still active. No, you were weak sauce the other day, how have you already come so far? Even Mira, the weakest of us, easily destroyed you. I had a very evil teacher. Issei responded as he rushed towards her. With Kaneko, Riser Phoenix's last pawn has been retired. Kaneko had come across the knights long before Yudo had found them, though one of them had ignored her and went to go find the swordsman of the group. That left her with the wielder of the larger sword. Kaneko was already using her full strength, both of her tails were out and she was covered in a thin layer of Taki to enhance all of her abilities. You might have defeated the rooks, but my swordplay the woman had a fist embedded deep into her stomach and she kneeled over as blood poured out of her mouth. Kaneko just allowed her to fall to the ground, her body vanishing in blue sparkles. One knight belonging to Riser Phoenix has been retired. One queen belonging to Ria's Gremory has been retired. Akeno lost. Kaneko asked in shock when she heard the announcement that Akeno, their priestess of thunder, had been defeated. She would have expected somebody of Akeno's skill and power to easily do away with Riser's queen like it were nothing at all. Seems like I'll actually be your opponent, which sucks because I don't actually ever really fight in these raiding games. Ravel Phoenix spoke as she approached Kaneko, her arms uncrossing as she summoned a fireball. She sent a stream of fire at Kaneko, who had the instinct to dodge when she felt the heat from the flames. The instinct. She shoved her hand into the ground and ripped up a chunk of earth, and while the stone started to melt under the fire, she punched it and sent it flying at Ravel. Her flaming wings came out and she took to the sky before the rock hit her. Funny, a weeks ago, she would have been out of my league. She's nearly as strong as her brother, and I hear her flames are even hotter, but somehow I'm not worried in the slightest, Kaneko thought as she summoned a white flame, and she added purification power to the flame. She surrounded her fist with the flame, burning away her boxing glove she was wearing. Light and purification properties were super effective against devils, which meant that even the healing of a phoenix could be slowed down and defeated if such an element were used against them. They would heal faster than a regular devil, but the effect on them would wear down their mental abilities, enough to seriously slow down their regeneration. Not going to say anything, Cat? Ravel asked with an amused smile. No need, this is a sport, a competition. My teacher Kaneko dodged out of the way of the fire and launched a fireball up at Ravel. Ravel just allowed the fireball to hit her and explode against her. Ah! Ravel fell out of the sky and held her chest in pain, her clothes ripped and a burn appearing on her chest. The burn quickly healed as her own flames coated the wound and her clothes returned to the state they had been in before. Ravel looked at Kaneko in shock when she realized she had been hurt by fire and that her healing had taken more time than it should have to heal such a wound. Would beat me to near death if he saw me waste my time on you. Kaneko rushed towards Ravel. A purification punch to the face before Ravel could do so much as block it, because even if Ravel could see the attack coming, she wasn't fast enough or experienced enough to do anything about it. Kaneko felt satisfaction when she chained a combo of punches together and ended it with an uppercut to the jaw that knocked Ravel against a brick wall and then through the brick wall. After one-shotting every enemy that she had gone up against and after having never been able to land a real hit on Naruto, it felt nice to actually be able to chain combos together. Ravel, a half-healed Ravel, glared at her as she came out of the hole in the wall. You shouldn't be this strong. I'm stronger than Brother's queen, and Ria's queen is her strongest piece. You shouldn't be this strong. You're just her rook. Ravel glared at Kaneko when it registered to her that she had been ragdolled and toyed with. I wasn't as strong as Akeno until I trained with my teacher. Thanks to him, I'm now stronger than your brother. You see, me, Issei, and Yudo have a bet on which one of us is going to defeat your brother. Kaneko couldn't resist the urge to taunt. One knight belonging to Riser Phoenix has been retired. One queen belonging to Riser Phoenix has been retired. Impossible, you, stronger than my brother. Of course it's possible because right now, I'm almost able to compete with my sister. You see, my sister is the Nekashu Kuroka, and under my teacher, I'm way stronger than her when she was my age. That would mean you're nearly equal to an ultimate class devil. You're lying, you can't be that strong after only 10 days. There isn't training harsh or a teacher skilled enough to draw out that much strength from a student in such a short amount of time. It's impossible. Ravel stepped back from Kaneko in shock, surprise, and most of all disbelief when she heard the insane statement that Kaneko was getting close to ultimate levels of strength. Not yet, I'll still got a ways away from Kuroka, my senjutsu still needs work. But you see, I'm not afraid anymore. My teacher showed me death, he showed me genuine fear, and he taught me what I needed to not fear senjutsu anymore. Are you ready for round? Riser Phoenix has been retired, the match goes to Ria's Gremory. Which one of them did it? Kaneko frowned when she realized she had wasted too much time taunting Ravel. Ravel dropped to her knees in shock. Brother lost. I'll bet it was Yudo, he did make those swords to cancel out Riser's abilities. Damn, and I wanted to be the one to tell Naruto-sensei that I defeated Riser. Kaneko spat into the dirt in annoyance. She had wanted to show off, which led to her wasting far too much time. Still, unlike Issei and Yudo, she had run into Ravel, who had healing nearly as fast as her brother's healing, thanks to her being younger than him. She had come across an opponent that would be time-consuming to defeat. If either of them had come across her, then she would have been the one to defeat Riser, but she got the unlucky straw. You mean you aren't the only one? Of course not, Issei the pervert is just as strong as me when he uses his balance breaker, and Yudo might not be as strong as us, but he's still skilled enough to keep up. You guys never stood a chance the second we finished the 7 days we had with our teacher. Kaneko might not have won the bet, but she could rub it into Ravel's face some. 7 days. You all reached this level of strength in 7 days because of this Naruto-sensei. Ravel bit the tip of her thumb. Yes, and Butchu is going to hire him to train us again soon. Hire. I'm going to impress him with my growth and hopefully become his genuine apprentice. He's a very kind man, even when he was beating us to near death, he always took care of us and accepted us for our faults. He helped us every step of the way. Kaneko had a goal. That bastard of a teacher, she was going to impress him enough to pick her as his true apprentice so that she could learn his secrets. Then she was going to confess to him. So this Naruto-sensei can be hired, good to know. Ravel stood up, dusted herself off, just as the entire place started to glow, and their bodies started to glow as well. They were all being called out of the raiding games now that they were over. I'll admit defeat today, but I'm going to get revenge on you, Kaneko Taoju, Rook of Gremory. I will not take this humiliation lying down. That's right, you'll take it standing like a bird. Bats aren't the only creatures who can steal prey. What the hell are you? Kaneko couldn't quite get what Ravel was talking about or why she seemed so confident for some reason. This teacher of yours, I bet he would be far more interested in having a cup of tea with a high-class lady than rubbing knuckles with a brute, wouldn't you say? Oh hell no, that man is mine. I'm staking my claim on him, a fried chicken can't take him. He's got a heart of gold, a greedy bird like you has no business butting her head into my plans to make Naruto-sensei mine. Kaneko pushed her forehead up against Ravel's face, and the girl sent a cocky glare down at Kaneko. Ravel pushed her much larger chest out for Kaneko to see. And how are you going to stop me, kitten girl? At least my body is athletic and toned, and my b aren't just chicken breasts. I bet your bra smells like fried chicken, and your panties smell like BBQ sauce. With Naruto, so is this normal? It's very normal for young devil women to become attracted to powerful men, and it seems that Naruto is Kaneko's type. She's always been more attracted to kindness. Graia palmed her face with red cheeks, having been watching the match as the referee the entire time. She and Millicent were both seeing what was happening in real time before the screen cut out. She was having to explain to her son something normal, but at the same time embarrassing for her to have to explain to him when he was young. I'm just glad that Naruto is not awake, or Kaneko would have been very humiliated. I see, I would much like to meet this man when he's awake. Somebody say my name. Naruto yawned and woke up from his nap. The game had been one-sided and very boring, so he had taken a nap halfway through it. Naruto rubbed the top of Millicent's head before he stood up and walked out of the room. See you guys later. Who defeated Riser? Udo defeated Riser, but it was a closer match. Good for him, shame that Kaneko and Issei are going to lose the little bet they had. Still, watching this raiding game was way too boring. If you people need me, I'm going to be relaxing in a nearby park. Naruto had no interest in watching something as hilariously one-sided as it had been. Rias had only lost her queen during the entire raiding game, but the loss of a single soldier in a one-sided war was still very one-sided. Millicent smiled and waved to Naruto. I really like him, he seems cool. He's quite the brute. That's super cool too. Graia really hoped that Naruto wasn't going to be hanging around more often. Chapter end. Story start. The room sure was awkward. Nobody had expected Rias to win for starters, and though Naruto didn't know about it at the time, apparently her victory was the condition for her to escape her marriage contract. Not that him knowing would have changed things, he had been paid to train her peerage. He had been in it for the money, and he was just invited to the party as a formality, since he had trained her peerage. Most people had come to the party expecting to hear the news that Riser had won. Riser himself was sulking, not talking to anyone, and just hanging out by himself as his peerage spoke with people. His peerage had no personal business in the marriage itself, so they seemed far less sour over their loss. He didn't look at Naruto or try to talk with him, which was fine by anyone's point of view. Naruto was the lone human at the party after all. Fancy snacks. Naruto looked at the tiny snack plate that he was offered, even the non-snack items were being served at the portion size of a snack. He was wearing a suit that Graia had brought for him, and he did run a comb through his hair and get it trimmed back down to the length he was comfortable with. I'm really not suited for this kind of "can I help you?" Naruto asked a young girl that had approached him. Ravel Phoenix, he believed her name was. I apologize for my rudeness, but are you the personal tutor, Uzumaki Naruto? Ravel asked with a polite curtsy, though it wasn't a bow like he was used to. Naruto could tell that was a form of polite greeting for women of this world. She appraised him as she did so, and he could tell that she was eyeing him up and judging him. He didn't really try to react to that or give her anything to judge, but she still seemed satisfied overall. Wahahaha. The Red Dragon Crossdresser. TFFFFT. Naruto held back his laughter when he saw Ria's peerage enter the room, and he could see what the bet was. Issei was wearing a red dress with a humiliated face, and Kaneko was wearing a small tuxedo. The two of them had come to the party cross-dressing, while a girl in a suit could look dashing, Issei in a dress was just hilarious. Seeing them instantly got everyone talking, while Naruto turned his attention back to Ravel. "Yes, I am Naruto." Naruto answered Ravel's question. That knocked her out of her sheer confusion at seeing one of the people stronger than her brother cross-dressing. Technically two of them were cross-dressing, but a girl in a suit wasn't really considered to be cross-dressing anymore by some. "You're the one who trained Ria's peerage, you cost me my bride and my pride." Riser had heard that, and he approached Naruto. Ravel sighed in annoyance when she was interrupted, and Riser lowered his voice only slightly when he noticed that people were starting to look at him. "How dare you interfere with her training? What do you have to gain by helping a brat escape her marriage?" "Money?" Naruto deadpanned. "Eh? Money? I didn't know about the marriage thing. I just got told she needed training for a combat sport competition, so I accepted the money and trained some of her peerage. The only thing I gain is money, I really didn't have anything personal against you." Naruto didn't know why Riser was so angry at him. He just trained Ria's peerage, that was all. Whatever growth they achieved was the fruits of their own hard work, he just helped push them into improving. His answer shocked Riser for a moment, who had the sense to look slightly ashamed of his outburst. He coughed into his sleeve and looked around before he straightened himself up and extended a polite hand to Naruto. Right, this man trained the people who were stronger than him, that meant this man was leagues above him in strength. Riser was pissed, but if Naruto was telling the truth, that meant that Naruto bore no personal grudge against him. He didn't want to make an enemy out of somebody who was stronger than him if he could help it. "I apologize for my outburst then, and are you free, or rather, are you busy? I would like to hire you to train my peerage as well." Riser offered Naruto a job. Another devil approached Naruto at that statement. "Actually, I think he should train my peerage, I can pay in more than just money. Not only money, but a visit to my luxury spa." Naruto was getting surrounded by people that were starting to give him offers to have him train their peerages as well. He was getting crowded and he wasn't a fan of it. Not to mention he didn't really like the look of some of the people that were making the offers. They cleared out of the way when Rias coughed into her fist and they noticed that people were starting to dance. Rias looked at Naruto with a smile on her face as she offered him a hand and both helping to clear away the job offers and for dance. "As my peerage's tutor, may I have this first dance?" Rias politely offered a hand. Riser sent her a look of longing and Naruto jealousy when he shrugged and took her hand. Looking at how the other people in the room were starting to dance, it didn't seem like it would be that hard to copy. So he took her hand, walked onto the dance floor with her, and placed a hand on her hip as he copied the nearest dancing couple. "Thanks, I guess I don't exactly have a schedule right now for accepting jobs. I have a feeling if I accepted any of those jobs, it would be a long-term assignment." Naruto couldn't see any of those people allowing him to accept anything except for several years of training their peerages, that way they could monopolize him. "Were the improvements to your trio of brats really that impressive?" Naruto asked Rias with a raised eyebrow. She nodded. "Yes, very. Riser is very strong by the standards of our society, he almost never loses in rating games, and most of his loses are because he lost on purpose. To get some weakling low-class devils to above Riser's level in 7 days isn't just an improvement, it is outstanding." Rias didn't view her peerage that way, but she knew of many high-class devils like herself that did. For a low-class devil like Yudo, one with a weaker sacred gear, to rise to the level where he could defeat Riser was just unthinkable. The fact that Issei and Kaneko were stronger than Yudo was just flat out more amazing to everyone, taking low-class devils like them to the point they could compete with weaker members of the ultimate class was impossible to imagine. The biggest fact was that it happened in a matter of 7 days of Naruto's training, with 3 days used for rest afterwards. They danced for a little. "Might I have this dance with her next?" "Sure thing, Naruto-sensei, this is my cousin. Saraird Bale, the heir to the Bale family. It seems that you have somebody waiting for a dance with you as well." Rias introduced Naruto to her cousin for a brief moment, with Naruto shaking hands with the hand. Naruto walked off after that to go and dance with the next person who seemed to show interest. He offered his hand to Kaneko, and he noticed that Akeno was teaching Issei how to dance, while Yudo taught Asia how to do the same dance. It was kind of sweet for him to see how the group were helping each other out. "Naruto-sensei." Cute suit Kaneko. Naruto watched as Ravel pushed past Kaneko and offered a hand to Naruto, with Kaneko staring death at Ravel for the slight. Naruto was amused enough that he found the entire situation humorous. Ravel took Naruto's hand before Kaneko could, and she sent Kaneko a cocky smirk. "Whatever, save a dance for me later, Kaneko." "Sure." Kaneko put all of her hate into that one word and directed it at Ravel. "Oh ho ho, don't worry kitten, you can have him when I'm done. I can't wait." Kaneko grit her teeth in response, annoyed by the petty revenge. Even when Ravel started to dance with Naruto, every time Ravel was in a position to send a cocky smirk her direction, she sent that same smirk. She was going to roast that bird. "So, Naruto-sama, before your schedule becomes too busy, you see, I would like to increase my own abilities. I was wondering if I could hire you as my private tutor. Ravel wondered to him. If a low-class devil like Kaneko could get so strong, if Yudo could get stronger than her brother, then she could only imagine how strong she could become. Issei, the Red Dragon Emperor, made sense in how strong a Longinus user could get. Is that a no-go? Ravel asked when she saw Naruto considering it. Well, I am going to train Kaneko and Issei for a month in the near future, but other than that, my schedule is free. We can negotiate prices later, but what kind of training do you want exactly? Naruto didn't know what kind of fighter she was. The trio he just trained were all close-range combat fighters, so he could train all three of them the same way. He could feel Ravel's hip, and while she wasn't unhealthy or fat, she didn't have the same tone that Yudo and Kaneko had. She did basic physical training, and that was it, but her magical reserves were pretty high when compared to quite a few other people in the room. I would like training to improve my overall abilities. I have little hand-to-hand experience, and though I am a long-range magic fighter, I now see the benefit to being able to defend myself up close. Ravel wanted mostly to improve what she was already good at, but if she could get basic abilities in the places she was weak, that would be great as well. And what are your long-range abilities? Fire and wind magic, though I lean more towards fire, and really only use the wind to enhance the fire. Ravel smiled when he seemed to be considering her offer. Does that mean you'll take me as an apprentice? Ravel asked, but she was let down when she saw Naruto laugh a little. Sorry, but a person has got to prove themselves to me before I would even consider them an apprentice. The bond between master and apprentice is a few steps above regular teacher and student, but I don't see a reason not to accept you as a student. Naruto stated as he sent a grin down at Ravel. How does Friday and Saturday sound? Naruto asked her, since those days sounded like they would be good days to tutor her. Just 2 days. Let's start with 2 days and see where you go from there. Naruto heard the disappointment in her voice. You might need to get approval from your parents, though my training can be a little harsh. Naruto told her. Just because she wasn't fit for the same training that the trio went through, didn't mean that the training he was going to have her go through was any less harsh. Excuse me. Kaneko gently pushed Ravel away from Naruto and took hold of Naruto's hand and put his other hand on her ribs. She sent a devious smirk towards Ravel. Wouldn't want the smell of fried chicken to get on your new suit. Oh you little. Ravel was in the middle of a fancy party, so she wasn't able to insult Kaneko like she wanted to. She sucked up her pride and walked away, leaving Kaneko with a victorious smirk on her face. Bonk. If you're going to win, don't be a lousy winner. Naruto stated to her a small lesson. Kaneko pouted at him and moved a hand to her head, right where he bonked her. Naruto put his hand back on her ribs since she was a short woman and he couldn't easily reach her hip. She still smiled as she rubbed the top of her head though. The bonk in exchange for a dance. Worth it. Chapter end. Story start. Somehow this does not seem like the same training you put those three through. Simple observation. Ravel was wearing a bikini and standing neck deep in clear blue water, being in her family pool, and Naruto was pouring ice into the water. Large chunks of ice too, cold enough that Ravel was going to start shivering once the water started to really chill down. We're going to work on your abilities. Naruto told her as he happily placed more ice into the water. With her healing abilities and the fact she was not a hand-to-hand fighter, the training method for others wasn't going to work for her. He had to draw out her potential with a different kind of training that followed a similar base, but was practiced a different way in theory. This feels like learning water magic. It's got nothing to do with water abilities at all. Once the water cools down more, I just want you to make a fire in your hands underwater. Naruto told her the simple idea of what she was going to be doing. You want me to make fire underwater? Make fire underwater, let's see what solution you come up with. If you manage, your fire will become much stronger, much hotter, and much denser. Naruto finished pouring ice into the water. Also, if you don't want to die of the cold you better also use your magic to heat yourself up. Naruto explained something else she was going to have to learn to do if she wanted to succeed in the training. Ravel had a lot of questions. How will this make my flame stronger exactly? Just making a fire underwater doesn't seem like it will help. Figure it out yourself, trust me, once you actually figure it out. You'll understand. By the way, you stay in the water until you succeed or until the training session is over. Naruto laid back in a chair and just watched Ravel. She was already starting to shiver as the cold started to get to her, which was saying something. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then caused her body to heat up. Naruto closed his eyes and rested with his arms behind his head, soaking up the heat from the lights above them. Since it was an indoor pool, he couldn't soak up sunlight, but the heat lamps above him were giving him a pleasant relaxing time. -14 hours later. Can I take a break? I'm hungry, and this isn't working. It was impossible. The second she tried to make a flame underwater, she would stop heating her body up, and the sudden rush of cold would make her lose focus on her ability to make fire. That would then just cause her to be completely unable to get herself up to the challenge of making a flame under cold water. Nope, you stay in the water until you succeed, or you can give up the training, but just so you know, Kaneko lasted 7 days during her training. Naruto used Kaneko against Ravel. Ravel shut up and got back to work. Naruto already knew how this would help Ravel, but he was going to let her figure it out herself. She needed to attain finer control over her magical power and split her attention between heating herself up and creating an air pocket under the water with wind magic and then creating a flame inside of that air pocket. After that, she would need to control the dense flames that would be produced from such a combination. She would need fine control, dense power, and mental endurance to be able to control all three things at the same time. He took basic Rasengan training, changed it up a little bit to fit the same key ingredients, and then applied them to her flames so that he could bring out her potential. She already knew how to enhance fire with wind, so she had the tools to succeed. Now she just needed the willpower to not give up until she reached a point that she could reach a stronger flame with her own 2 hands. Can you at least give me a hint? How can I warm myself up and make the flame at the same time? You just have to look right and left at the same time. That doesn't how. Ravel couldn't imagine how such a thing was possible, but the smile on Naruto's face told her that it really was a big clue. I would need to do the impossible and achieve such fine magic control that I could divide my attention between 2 tasks, but Ravel realized what the hint was getting at when she complained about it. Naruto snapped his fingers, and that was when she knew that she had worked out part of it. Technically, look right, left, and up at the same time. It will make sense, just work on your training. Thanks, I was getting thirsty. Naruto thanked a maid that brought him a drink. Also, if you don't want your nipples to cut glass, I would make sure you don't lose focus. Naruto stated as he pointed at her hardened nipples, visible through her swimsuit. Beep. Humiliation. While the Rias trio had to face against pain and near death, Ravel was exceedingly prideful. Pain and hurt wasn't going to get the best personal growth out of her, she needed something that would attack her pride. Humiliating her by forcing her to train harder to stop her nipples from embarrassing her would be even better at breaking down some of that pride. Technically, he didn't even need to add as much ice as he did. He also didn't need to tell the maids to keep bringing in more ice for Ravel's training, but he did, and he was going to enjoy seeing Ravel struggle to try and save her pride. Riser peeked his head into the pool before he snuck up towards Naruto. So Naruto-sensei, how does this training make our phoenix fire even hotter, more powerful? Riser asked as he considered for a moment joining his sister. He saw Naruto just relaxing before Naruto paid attention to him. This seems like an impossible task. It's not impossible. Are you sure? Trust me, if Ravel can figure out how to do it, she will figure out how this can make her flames stronger. I would say that this training is the best way to bring out the wasted potential in your phoenix flames. Naruto didn't explain it at all. If Ravel could control density of her magical power and more finely control that dense magic, then she could supercharge her flames to new heights. She could make her flames denser, hotter, stronger, and apply even more dense wind to the flames to completely raise the power to the limits. You're more than welcome to join her, just tell your parents to pay me a little more. Naruto told Riser. The man sat down and was satisfied with watching his sister train. Oh wait brother, this is embarrassing enough. Ravel reached out of the water and blasted her brother with a fire blast that knocked him into the wall. She had a humiliated blush spread across her entire upper body. -2 weeks later, the 3rd week of training, it was a Saturday. Boom. Ravel was blasted out of the water by an immense explosion, an explosion that vastly exceeded her own flame durability. The upper half of her body had been completely blown away by her own flames, and she healed after a few moments, the top of her swimsuit regenerating with her body, thanks to her magic. What the hell was that? Ravel screamed at the top of her lungs. She had gained enough control to make a small bubble of air in the water, heat up her body, and form a small flame inside of the air bubble. The very second that she created the fire though, instead of a fire being created, she created an explosion of flames that burst in every direction. You didn't create a flame, do it again, this time no explosion. What was that? Ravel asked Naruto as she looked at the pool with eyes filled with terror. How did a small flame turn into such a massive explosion that she could have killed herself with it? She had actually felt the heat of that. She wasn't complaining about Naruto's training showing results, her magic control had increased and she was starting to wield denser magic. To say the least, there were results. Her flames were getting stronger, but she still had yet to see this latent potential that Naruto had been talking about until just this very moment. The second step to unlocking your flame's true potential, good for you, now master the second step. Naruto clapped his hands for Ravel in appreciation of her improvements, but he still didn't tell her anything at all. That power was explosive, how am I supposed to control that? Just do it, figure it out on your own. Don't worry, I'll be right here watching you the entire time. Of course, Kaneko unlocked a chunk of her hidden potential by this point without needing me to explain it to her. Naruto spoke Kaneko's cursed name to Ravel, and that shut the girl up as she jumped into the water and got back into the spot she had been. Boom, Naruto put earplugs in. Almost 2 weeks later, it was a Friday. I did it, Ravel whispered as the water glowed a bright blue. She was holding a bright blue flame under the water, a vastly different color than her usual orange and red flames. The water in the pool was quickly boiling and steaming, and as she walked to the edge of the pool and walked up the steps, the small flame in her hands turned into a raging inferno the second it touched the air. She was surprised, shocked even, by the sheer intensity of the flames that she was producing. She was using less than a 1/3 of the usual magic that she would use to produce flames of this size. Not only that, but the heat was far above the heat of any flame she had produced in her life, and it was so bright and so dense that she could hardly believe that they were phoenix flames. She wasn't wasting any magic power, instead of wasting it, it was getting condensed and empowered even further by the careful application of wind. She had produced the flame, but the flame got as dense as it was not just from her magic power, but her control over how the wind and fire were mixing. Amazing Ravel's body was already completely dry. She stared into the flame. Did you figure it out? Naruto asked her with a grin. My brothers and I always used our wind to make the flames stronger, but we wasted a lot of our magic power doing it. By training my focus, I can fine-tune how much magic I'm using, and by fine-tuning that, I can control the density. Since I trained on splitting my focus, I can mix the wind and fire in a way that it's blue, because I'm not wasting any magic power at all. Ravel realized why the flame was blue. The fact was that it turned blue because she wasn't wasting any magical power at all, and it was so bright because the fuel, her magic, was so dense, and the wind was finally burning that magic power. How could such simple training cause such a great growth in raw power? Wind was only used to enhance fire, but never fuse with it like this. This was the true fusion of the two materials to create something so much stronger than the parts combined, and it was only because of her training in splitting her focus and fine-tuning her control over dense magic that she could mix them the way she was doing. Great, now I guess you're ready for the third step to push that little flame to the next level. It can go further, Ravel asked with amazement. Of course, you've unlocked the explosive power of your flames and taken the heat to the next level. Since you still have the rest of today and tomorrow, I'm going to train you on how to use those flames in real combat. Naruto stated as he stood up and cracked his knuckles. Sunday, Lord Phoenix and Lady Phoenix were astounded when Ravel showed off the results of her training. Her control and the heat of her flames were on a level that none of her brothers could compete with, even if her older brothers had more destructive powers overall. The fact that her flames were now the strongest of them all in a few short weeks was unbelievable. The top of Ravel's body had been reduced to ash. Ravel had shown off her improvements by going head-to-head against her brother in a contest of flames, and her flames had completely overwhelmed her brother's flames. They used a fire attack of the same size, but the eldest Phoenix son had his fire completely extinguished by the youngest Phoenix child. Ravel was close to being promoted to an ultimate class devil and was the strongest in pure power of the Phoenix family. How did you manage this, dear Ravel? Ravel asked as he finished regenerating his upper body, shocked that his flames had been overpowered by his sister in such a short amount of time. Ravel's power had been almost a rival for the youngest brother not even a short while ago, but now her firepower had increased to such a startling degree. Ravel just smiled at the stunned looks of her family. Hard work and willpower and humiliation and pain. Ravel paled a little when she recalled what she did half of Friday and all of Saturday with her tutor. The way he beat her ass over and over again until she could summon her flames in an instant and control them in larger amounts. The many hundreds of times that she had been beaten close to death in order to attain a higher level of control of her new, more powerful flames. The worst part, he didn't even explain how to control them while he was beating her. All he did was beat her and force her to learn how to control them better, faster, and with more skill if she wanted to stop the beating. He put her in a life or death situation where she would either sink or swim, with no choice on if she wanted to sink or not. This Naruto did wonderful work. Ravel clapped when his stunned state was ended. He didn't really do anything, he didn't explain anything to her. He just told her to do something and waited for her to figure it out. Please don't insult Naruto-sensei, his teaching methods have made me much stronger. Ravel turned to face Riser, who gulped when he noticed that Ravel was sending him a look that promised pain. He couldn't even deny the results of that training. If I may, I don't think that Naruto-sensei's teaching should be allowed to spread to others. It might be best for us to hire him as a full-time tutor for our family and our family alone. Ravel showing results actually made the suggestion tempting to her parents. It was tempting to Riser and Ravel as well, who could agree that it would be a boon to their family and they could all benefit from having a good teacher. We've already made the offer, but he politely declined. Lord Phoenix had already tried. He coughed into his hand. Sorry, but you can hire me, but I'm not for sale like that. Those were his words. Lord Phoenix had tried at the beginning of Ravel's training to hire Naruto full-time, and he tried again at the end of her lesson. He got the same answer. Damn. There went her plan to stop Naruto from spending future time with Kaneko. Chapter end. Story start. How could he be matched? He was Cabal, once a leader of Heaven's armies and more recently a general of the Grigori group. How could three low-class devils being ruining his plans and pushing him into a corner like they were? His plan to gather the Excalibur swords had failed. Freed had been defeated and the swordsmen of the trio had nearly captured the Excalibur swords that he had taken. It was only because he personally had gotten involved that the stolen swords didn't get stolen from him as well, and even then, he had not expected the swordsmen he had prepared ahead of time to die before he could wield the fused Excalibur. He didn't expect the church exorcists to team up with the devils. He could easily defeat the Gremory girl, the Himejima girl, and even both of the church girls with no effort, and the Twilight healing girl was no challenge at all. The fact was that he couldn't get the chance to kill any of them and start a war because of the simple fact that he had his hands filled fighting the trio who were matching and slowly pushing him into a losing position. It was only his years of experience that were allowing him to retain an edge in combat, and it was his natural ability to use light element weapons that allowed him to inflict wounds on them that were slowly weakening them. He had the advantage over them purely by experience and an element advantage, but he was still being pushed into a corner. He's strong and his light hurt so bad Issei panted as he mentally tried to think of how much time he had left. 2 minutes. He had 2 more minutes using his balance breaker at full power like he was, and even though Yudo had activated his own balance breaker, having achieved it after an emotional moment when they captured the scientist working with Cabal, and he was given a light container containing his friend's souls. They had 2 balance breakers and a senjutsu using Nekashu, and Cabal was still somebody able to match them. Haha, Yudo panted, his balance breaker rapidly depleting his stamina and cracks starting to form along the edges of his blade. His newly activated balance breaker was not perfect and he would not be able to keep it active for much longer. He was able to use his new sword to match Cabal's light swords, but eventually his swords were going to break and his stamina would be pushed into the red. He had 3 wounds on his body that were draining his stamina as well, and he didn't have Naruto to heal him like during their training. His wounds had bled and he was slowing down. Kaneko gripped her fist tightly. Half of her face was covered in her blood from a wound on her forehead, and her left arm had been pieced by a light sword, right at the bicep. She had the least number of wounds on her, but her one serious wound had reduced her to using one arm to fight. The barrier around the school was shattered. I come to visit my students, and I find them losing to Cabal. Really, why are you picking on my students like this? Zenobia froze when she heard a voice that she had never heard before, and she saw Naruto standing between Cabal and his students. Naruto had his hands behind his hand, having shattered the barrier around the school when he noticed it was keeping him from visiting Issei and Kaneko. Uzumaki Naruto, you're a neutral party, this is a matter between. Ah, Yudo, you've unlocked your balance breaker, and I like that glint in your eye. It seems you've found acceptance in yourself without my help. So, what is going on? Naruto asked as he looked around, trying to figure out what was happening, and with no context clues to speak of. Cabal, get out of here. Yes, Cabal summoned a spear of light behind his back. He threw it at Naruto when he noticed the man's back was turned, but it fizzled out of existence when Naruto turned his head and glared at him. Calm down boy, Naruto gave that calm warning to Cabal. The man lost his fighting spirit and fell to his knees. Just like that, Issei ran out of stamina for his balance breaker and returned to normal, while Yudo dropped to his knees in exhaustion. The two of them had their sacred gears go back to their dormant states, neither of them having the stamina to maintain them for a second longer, now that the fight was over. Kaneko collapsed onto her ass and wiped the blood out of her face. Cabal is trying to start another great war. This peace is unnatural, disgusting. What we need is a war. Cabal roared his reasoning. I need to spill the blood of devils and angels, to use my minions, to abuse those weaker than me. If it weren't for. Cabal stopped when Naruto glanced at him. Go back to your leader with your tail between your legs, you can't win with me here. Kaneko, Issei, and Yudo, the fact you 3 didn't beat him before I got here shows that Naruto caught a light spear and returned it to Cabal when the man threw it at him from behind. Cabal was pierced in the shoulder by his own spear. You are taking your power for granted. It should have only taken 2 of you to beat Cabal, but you're still inexperienced. I guess you guys got a little cocky and got hit by some light attacks. Naruto was forgiving of their mistake this time. They had gotten so strong in such little time that it was hard for such a high level of power to not go to their heads and get them making mistakes. He could see that near the end of the fight, the moment he appeared, they had started to take the fight seriously. At that point they had been weakened enough that Cabal was going to win in the end. Issei and Yudo had been at the end of their rope, and a weakened Kaneko would struggle to beat Cabal on her own. Cabal's wings attacked Naruto from behind, going from all different directions. Naruto held his finger up and flicked a small object to Cabal, an object that moved so fast that the second any of them blinked, it had vanished. Cabal froze completely, his wings freezing in place as well. The small yellow and white flash that went by him was gone, but Cabal seemed to have frozen in either shock or pain. What would happen? Why can't I move my body? Why can't I feel my body at all? Cabal couldn't even talk properly. That was your last chance to peacefully let this end. Naruto stated as he glanced back at Cabal. We're sorry, we shouldn't have gotten cocky. Kaneko apologized as she bowed her head in shame, and she wasn't the only one. Don't punish us. I'm sorry, Naruto-sensei, we underestimated him and overestimated ourselves. Ow. Yudo shouted when he was flicked in the head, and Issei yelped when he was flicked as well, with finally Kaneko flinching when her forehead was flicked after them. Naruto just gave them an amused smile. It's okay, as long as you survive, you can make mistakes. Be more careful in the future and take this lesson to heart. Just because you're stronger than your opponent doesn't mean you can underestimate them. Anyway, Rias. Naruto looked over to the scrapped-up redhead. Yes, Naruto-sensei. So when do you want to hire me again? I need to make sure I have that month clear in my schedule, since other people want to hire me. Naruto had another reason for paying a visit to Kuo, so that he could talk with Rias about when she wanted to hire him. Rias blinked a few times before she gasped when she remembered that. She was so thankful that she had told Naruto she wanted to hire him again in the future because that had saved their lives. Who knew that something so simple could end up helping her so much? Don't ignore me, why can't I move my body? What did you do to me, Uzumaki Naruto? Cabal shouted at the top of his lungs. Mini Rasen Shuriken. What? Simple, I flicked a mini Rasen Shuriken at you and disconnected your head from your body. The reason you can't move. Naruto picked up a small pebble from the ground and he flicked it at Cabal's head. The pebble hit the man dead center in the forehead. A red line appeared on his neck. Cabal's head slid off of his body and his body collapsed to the ground. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw that, and several hands went to their necks when they realized how quickly and how easily Cabal had been killed. I'm dying is because the cut is on a cellular level. I cut you so cleanly that until something touched your head, you would stay alive. I made sure you wouldn't suffer, so take that small mercy. Naruto had cut Cabal's neck in a way that blood and oxygen had still been flowing through his veins and to his brain, and his body would remain frozen. The second that his head was touched by anything, even a stiff breeze, his head and body would fall apart from each other. I really am sorry, but killing brats, starting wars, and threatening my cute little students is a death sentence. Naruto apologized to Cabal with his hands placed together in a prayer. The weird part for everyone was that it seemed that Naruto was genuinely sorry that he had killed Cabal. What all of us together struggled with, he just comes in and kills him like it was. Who is this man? Zenobia whispered in shock and awe, her mind still shaken from the horrifying news that she had heard. She was having a really shocking night to say the least. All of the shocking events of this mission had really piled up. She was glad that Irina was recovering from her fight with Issei and hadn't been around to hear some of the worst things she had learned. Uzumaki Naruto, and you must be him. Have you ever thought of growing your hair out? I bet you would be insanely beautiful with long hair. Naruto rarely saw hair as beautiful as the blue-haired girl that was questioning him. He loved long hair at his very core, though short hair could look great as well. Naruto leaned over Zenobia and examined her with a critical eye. Sword user, don't see a lot of women use large swords like this, even where I'm from. Yeah, I think I can tell where you need to be trained. HMPH. Naruto smirked as he looked between Zenobia and Rias. This girl was lost. Knowing what he had learned about Rias, he could easily see what was going to be happening with this girl in the future. He could guess that she was going to be replacing Yudo in his month-long training course in the near future. I've been useless lately. I was the only one who lost against Riser's peerage, and I couldn't do anything here either. Akeno gripped her arm hard enough for her nails to draw blood. She glared down at herself, and tears started to leak out of her eyes. She hated the feeling that she was useless. Issei unlocked his balance breaker. Kaneko overcame her fear and became strong. Now even Yudo had unlocked his balance breaker. Asia was a healer, even now she was healing Issei, Yudo, and Kaneko's wounds. Rias was a good strategist overall, and had more raw power than her. She was the queen, but somehow, she was now the least useful member of the peerage. Come on brats, I'm hungry, had a long trip to get here. So do your teacher a favor and treat him to dinner. Naruto grabbed Issei and Yudo by their collars and pulled them away from their healing. He gestured for Rias, Akeno, Asia, and Zenobia to follow as well, while Kaneko followed without being told. He was looking forward to the month of training soon. That was going to be a big paycheck. Chapter end. Story start. So what are you doing here all alone in the underworld? Nyan. Hiroka. She was annoying, but she was sexy as nobody had the right to be. He had not been bothered by her in a while since he started to do paid gigs as a tutor. He was currently in Gremory territory, or rather he was on a mountain that was being gifted to him by the Gremory household. It was one of the perks of him accepting the month-long training, he got to keep the mountain he was training the peerage on. His own land. He was going to build a house at the top of the small mountain. It was a nice spot, but he would wait until the month was over before he started construction on the house. He didn't expect a visit from the woman who couldn't decide if she wanted to fight him or fuck him. I'm getting familiar with the mountain. Naruto turned his head to the side and dodged a Kai blast from Koka as she sent her concentrated life force at him, and when it hit the ground in front of him, it exploded into a pretty large crater. The explosion was nice and dense as well. It wouldn't have hurt him if it took it head on, but it would have stung. I've got students coming for training, Naruto explained to her. Ooh, I try and become your student and you tell me to buzz off, but you accept other students. Was I not sexy enough for you, Nyan? Koka asked as she created illusion clones of herself and she and all of them charged towards Naruto. Naruto flicked her forehead and sent her flying, her clones vanishing the second she was hit by the attack. Koka created poison mist that started to fill the area, but Naruto unleashed his chakra for a moment and blew it away. Koka just landed on her feet with a giggle that her mist had no real effect at all. I'm getting paid and shouldn't you be? I don't know, aren't you with the goth loli and white dragon brat? Naruto questioned Koka with a raised eyebrow. He was pretty sure that Koka was on the same side as them. I was sent to track you down by office. Seems she was upset that you left the spot she always meets you at. Koka confirmed that she wasn't seeing him for purely personal business. Vali also lost interest in fighting you until he gets stronger. Lucky for me, my goals for fighting you are a lot more simple, Nyan. Koka threw a flurry of kicks at Naruto and she sighed in amusement when all of them were blocked by his forearm. On the plus side, he had a solid as hell built forearm. She could hardly wait to rub her body up against a body as solid as his was. Actually, I would say getting knocked up is just as simple as his goal of fighting strong people, slutty virgin. Naruto commented when he finally had a title for Koka. Her cheeks turned red. Be virgin. Nothing wrong with virginity, if you are experienced it doesn't show. Naruto palmed her in the center of the chest softly and knocked her back against a boulder. She had raised her arms up to guard, but he had slipped through her arm with little problem. I mean, most people don't want to have sex with women who tried to kill them. I'm an exception to that rule overall, but it comes off as you trying to catch them in a trap. Naruto explained. Well, how am I supposed to my species? Aren't you a devil though? I'm still a Nekashu. Devil is just mixed into that now. Koka started off by shouting before she realized her desire was a little flawed. She never took the fact that her species consisted of just her and her sister, both of which were now mixed with devil biology. Ooh, I want strong children to continue my legacy. Koka made it work. So what the hell is a Nekashu anyway? Naruto asked her as he grabbed her by the wrist and gripped it, pushing her arm down and flicking her forehead a few times. Ow ow ow. Nekashu are a super rare subspecies of Nekomata, and by rare, I mean super rare. Before me and my sister Shirin were born, there was like the only Nekashu I knew existed before me and my sister was my mother. That is how rare it is for a Nekomata to give birth to a Nekashu. Koka explained the rareness of her subspecies. If 10,000 Nekomata gave birth, there was still a chance that none of those children would be a Nekashu, as simple as that. Nekashu could birth more of their subspecies, but the simple fact was that they were extra super rare. So basically, Nekashu are extinct until another one is born from a Nekomata. That the gist of it? Naruto asked her. No, but yes. Koka summoned purple fireballs and sent them crashing around the area, kicking up enough dust to make it impossible for somebody with keen hearing or keen sensing ability to tell what was happening. She rushed through the dust and swiped at where she sensed Naruto, but he flicked her in the forehead again and knocked her out of the dust. Then he cleared the dust before she could rush back in. Even if I'm not a full Nekashu anymore, my genes can still be passed down to my children. Have you ever thought of asking somebody to turn you back into a Nekashu? Naruto asked Koka with a raised eyebrow. That seemed like the absolute most simple way to solve the problem. Yeah, but unless a person can reach directly into my soul and yank out the evil pieces in there, it isn't happening. There isn't anyone who can sync their energy signature up with another person's on a level where they can do something like Koka sent a fireball, a kick, and then a Kai blast at Naruto in quick order. He grabbed her foot, flipped her around. Oh shit. Naruto's fist was glowing a golden yellow, and he punched her right in the chest. She felt no pain at all and looked down to see Naruto's hand had gone into her body. She shivered when she could feel him touching the inside of her soul and his hand messing with her life force, feeling around for something inside of her. Oh shit, Nyan. Koka didn't have a clue what was happening. Naruto pulled his hand out and two red bishop pieces came out with it and were inside of Naruto's hand. He gripped his fist and crushed the pieces before he flicked Koka in the forehead and sent her flying back into the same boulder from earlier. Oh shit. Koka looked down at herself. She felt a small drop to her magical reserves, but since she barely used any devil powers, she only ever trained in her Nekashu heritage, she felt mostly the same. She tried to summon her devil wings, but found herself completely unable to do so. She looked at the crushed pieces of evil pieces on the ground in front of her. I have experience reaching into souls and sensing my power up with them. There you go, now you're free to populate. Revive. Populate. If your species is super rare, then you aren't reviving them. You're populating them. If you wanted to revive your species, you would only need to give birth one time, and the numbers go from 1 to 2, which is what the numbers were before you and your sister became devils. Naruto explained to her such basic math that even her could understand it. The fact was that she was part of a rare species, so she wasn't going to be reviving it in the way a normal endangered species got revived. Her species was a natural-born endangered species, simply thanks to how rare they were, and they were a species that would be naturally revived again over time, as long as the Nekomata species kept breeding. So you can fuck me now, Nyan. Kuroka went back to fighting Naruto. If you pay me enough money. I don't have money, can I pay in other ways like sex? Can I pay with my body? Kuroka offered a different form of payment. This time she got punched for that one. The fact you think I'm dumb enough to fall for that trap pisses me off. Naruto deadpanned at her. Kuroka was sent rolling down the side of the mountain before she corrected her roll and got back to her feet with a bloody nose. She fixed her nose and went at Naruto with her speed slightly lower than it had been before. Seems her body being mixed with a devil actually helped her overall stats as well by the absolute smallest amount, and to anyone who was around Kuroka's level, the amount would be unnoticed. It was only because he was a lot stronger than her that he could notice that smallest of decreases in overall strength. Her speed was 1% slower. Her strength was 2% weaker. Her magical reserves were 4% smaller. Kuroka's physical abilities in combat were 3% weaker, and her magical abilities were 4% weaker, so the decrease could be easily fixed by training. And blame a girl for trying. Nyan, are you sure you don't want to join us and fuck me, but mostly join us? Our goal is to kick Great Red out of the dimensional gap, Kuroka stated their goal. Naruto crossed his arms. I'm not interested, it's kind of dumb to try and kill a guy because you don't like sharing something with it, something you don't even own. Office doesn't own the gap, she just lived there, but it didn't belong to her. This red guy has a right to hang out there too. Naruto had no interest in playing the role of executioner for a guy that was minding his own business. With you on our side, it would be super easy. Yeah, maybe, but I'm not some asshole who cuts off people's heads because they are in the way. Naruto stated with a roll of his eyes. Naruto throat chopped Kuroka and caused her to collapse onto her back and squirm around. He grabbed the back of her kimono and lifted her up like a kitten. Tell you what, maybe I will consider having sex with you, but only if you. Naruto tried to think of an impossible condition that would make sure she left him alone in the future. He would rather romance be based on love and actual romance, and no just a desire to breed like Kuroka had. Yes. Get your sister to agree to a threesome. Naruto told Kuroka. Sparkles filled her eyes. Yes sir, Nyan. Kuroka got out of Naruto's grip and saluted him with all of the enthusiasm in the world. With that, she escaped the mountain into a portal, leaving Naruto by himself. Idiot. He pitied Kuroka's sister, whoever that was. For some reason, he felt he was forgetting something, since they were about to have their sister hounding them for a threesome. He could not imagine a girl who wanted to fuck their sister in the first place. It was such an unnatural act to want to have sex with your family. Not to mention it would be shocking if she could get her sister to agree to not only a threesome, but a threesome with some guy that she didn't know. No sister would agree to that, but I feel sorry for Shirin. Naruto recalled the name that Kuroka called her sister near the beginning of their conversation. For a while I thought Kaneko was Kuroka's sister, both of them have K-names, are Nekashu, and are devils. Naruto realized why he felt he knew her sister. When he had been training Kaneko, he had gotten vibes from her that Kuroka had given him. Not to mention they looked very similar, both of them had very petite waists, Kuroka just had a bigger bust and slightly bigger butt, and their faces were super similar to each other. I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure. Naruto stated with a frown. Well, he did say that he would consider sex with Kuroka. Not that he would do it. Chapter end. Disclaimer. First chapter story start. As expected, Zenovia became a devil, and when it came time for Ria's peerage to experience their mouth-long training, she had been sent by Ria's to train under Naruto. He was fine with it and had actually been expecting it. Ooh, but this was unexpected. Where is Issei? Naruto looked and saw that Akeno had replaced Issei among the people who were training with him. He had expected Yuudo to not join again so that he could train with a proper swordmaster to further improve his skills with his balance breaker. He had not expected Issei to ditch the training. The perv is getting personal training from a dragon to better use his dragon abilities. Kaneko informed Naruto with a raised hand. She looked over towards Akeno, who had volunteered to take Issei's place for the training. It felt weird for her to not be training with Yuudo and Issei, since the two of them were the peerage members on her level. Issei was getting dragon training, and Yuudo was getting refreshed on his skills from his old swordmaster. Zenovia and Akeno had catching up to do. Sir, if I find success in this training, would you consider having babies with me? Zenobia raised her hand and asked with 100% dead seriousness. Kaneko just stared at Zenobia with shock when she heard the woman state something so straightforward and without having had a real conversation with Naruto. Of course, if you wish to have children with me even without my success, I am very much willing. Zenobia added that onto her statement. Naruto ignored her. He just ignored her statement completely, deciding that it was best not to think about it too much. Well, originally I was going to spar with you, Issei, and you to get her up to snuff for the first 7 days, but we have a long-range fighter here. Naruto was going to start off originally by simply getting Zenobia up to the same standard as the others for the first 7 days, but while that was still possible, it was unlikely to work exactly the same with a non-physical fighter among the group. Got it? Kaneko, while I train Akeno and Zenobia and drawing are their power, I want you to fight me with your eyes closed with them. Naruto would start from the beginning. Huh? Close your eyes, cover your ears, and don't use your nose. Use only Senjutsu to predict my movements for the fight, consider it training to hone your Senjutsu skills. Naruto told her as he took off his headband and tossed it to her. She nodded her head and covered her ears with it and she closed her eyes. That should even things out enough. Now Kaneko would get benefit in dodging stray attacks from Zenobia and Akeno as well, forcing her to take her sensing powers to the next level. Naruto put his hand on Akeno and Zenobia before he shared his chakra with them. He flicked Kaneko on the forehead and attached his chakra to her as well. Sensei, I'm already cleaned out. Kaneko stated with a raised hand. Huh? Zenobia and Akeno asked in confusion when they were taken from their confusion by hits to the stomach that caused them both to collapse. Kaneko was stripping naked and getting changed into her gym clothes before she saw Zenobia and Akeno get launched back into the pool river at the bottom of the mountain. Naruto grabbed their bags and tossed them to the bottom of the mountain so that they would have clean clothes to change into. No bathroom breaks allowed for the 7-day catch-up training. -7 days later. Brayden, now since this is only a 30-day training, I would have loved to give you a break, but sadly that can't be done this time. You get 8 hours to sleep, and that is it. Naruto told them as they all collapsed in front of him, sleeping on the ground moments later. Well, Akeno and Zenobia had been forced to catch up quickly. Turns out, Akeno was part fallen angel, and he had pushed her into unlocking that part of herself through repeated states of near-death, mental exhaustion, and strengthening her willpower. Her magical reserves grew more than her physical abilities did, but as a wizard type that was where her combat powers mostly lay anyway. Her combat potential had been pushed to nearly the same level that Kaneko had started the training at. Zenobia, wielder of Durandal, very powerful holy sword. She was a pure dumb physical fighter that used brute force and her enhanced night speed. She actually started off at a better starting point in ability than even Yudo had, being nearly as fast as him, but much physically stronger. Her starting weapon was also better, but she lacked the same technical skill that he had. Unlike Akeno, her growth was mostly physical in how she gained strength, speed, and durability. Her skills with her sword increased to a good level, where she wasted less movements and could wield her sword faster than before. Akeno would be around where Kaneko had been at the end of her first 7 days of training. Zenobia would be about where Yudo was after he unlocked his balance breaker after his training, so overall the two of them had the same overall combat power as Kaneko at the start of this training session. Kaneko grew as well. Her Senjutsu sensing ability grew by leaps and bounds, to the point where surprise attacks weren't surprising to her. Her ability to use Senjutsu has increased many times what it was, she could charge it up faster, keep it more consistent, and her control over it had increased. She experienced a small increase to speed, but her greatest growth was her technical skill with her Senjutsu and hand-to-hand ability. While her physical abilities remained nearly the same, her greatest growth came from the technical and control side of her skillset. I'm ready for more training. Kaneko took a deep breath. She restored her exhausted mind with Senjutsu, and though she was physically exhausted, she was ready for more training. Chop. Kaneko was knocked out cold, and Naruto leaned up against a tree, closing his eyes so that he could get some rest as well. -9 hours later, they had cute animals for lunch. They were now ready for more training. Okay, Kaneko, you open your eyes and uncover your ears now. Naruto caught his headband when Kaneko tossed it back to him. Naruto gave a whistle when he noticed that Zenobia's shirt was ripped and her toned stomach had gotten even more toned over the first 7 days of training. He could appreciate some good muscle definition in a woman, and Kaneko had toned up her belly as well. Though, she was already petite and toned, so the difference was much harder to notice in Kaneko, who mostly gained Senjutsu and technique-based improvements. Naruto-sensei, what is the Zenobia was caught off guard by a punch to the gut. Akeno and Kaneko were punched in the gut as well. Okay, now take some deep breaths in and out. Naruto had knocked them into a sitting position and he himself got into a position to meditate in. He correcting their breathing, and since they had been forced to sit down, all they needed to do was change how they were sitting. This training won't be as physically demanding how that I've given you the guts, willpower, and strength to overcome challenges. I'm going to help you mentally summon your truth and face it inside of you. Naruto stated as they took calming breaths. Their stomachs still hurt. Are darkness like an id? I have no clue what an id is, but I don't think so. As you live your life, a person will hide their true selves away. For me, it was the darkness that consumed my life. Inside the soul, the area changed around them. They were floating on an ocean of stars in an infinite universe as Naruto connected his chakra and his heart to their own. He drew them into the depths of his very soul, and they could look down at their own reflections in the sea of stars below them. Like actual water, but with stars inside of it that reflected them. Where are we? Akeno questioned. Chakra is the power to connect. I connected my spirit energy to yours and allowed you inside of my soul for this next step of training. Meditate here and try to bring out the deepest parts of your own soul here. Naruto told them as he smiled at them. How will this make us stronger? It won't make you physically stronger, but it will make you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually stronger, more complete. Trust me, once you're complete, you'll be able to feel the difference. Naruto stated as he watched over them. And how do we summon our true self? Akeno questioned. You don't summon them, you search inside of yourself and bring it out. This would be better if we had a waterfall of truth, but I'll use my heart to help you draw what is in your heart. Naruto placed a hand over his chest. By connecting his heart to their hearts, he was able to search and find their hidden parts. He had already found those hidden parts, now all that was left was for the girls themselves to find those parts and face them. Kaneko vanished. Outside of the soul, I already found it once Kaneko started to explain what she found. Naruto raised a hand. You accepted yourself, the small, weak, insecure parts of yourself you try to hide. Naruto didn't need her to break down what she experienced. The fact was, she had already been on the journey to accepting herself long before this training. The fact that she was the first to complete it and complete herself showed. Her power had changed slightly. The inner turmoil that had plagued Kaneko's power was gone, the reluctance was vanished. She gained no boost in power itself, but the conflict inside of herself was gone. The anger, malice, and fear that had still existed in her had been accepted. You were right, I didn't get stronger, but I feel so much stronger anyway. Kaneko found it hard to explain. She felt complete if she were to say it simply. It was so much easier to control her power now that she had accepted the parts of herself she had hidden. She gained no increase to her magic power or her physical strength, but for the first time in her life she took a deep breath and the senjutsu just came naturally to her. She had no issue drawing from nature, and when she did so she felt no draw. The power of nature did nothing to her at all, it was as if the power couldn't latch onto her darkness and pull out her negative emotions any longer. The hatred of the world meant nothing, the madness of power that came with senjutsu was gone from her soul. Kaneko placed her hands together gently. With her newfound fine control over senjutsu and her acceptance of herself, she synced her senjutsu up with her taki and fused it together with her purification power. Kaneko wore a cloak of taki over herself. She drew a second tail, and the aura around her increased in size as she showed her new control over her senses. With her senjutsu, she could sense the power within herself far better, and with her acceptance of herself, she could draw out even more of that power. She touched the natural energy around her. She sensed it with her own taki. She got physically bigger, though she didn't change very much. The only real change that Kaneko experienced was an increase to her boob size, and her hips filled out the slightest of amounts, and her hair grew longer. Overall, she was the same height, her waist was about the same size, her face stayed the exact same. The change were pretty much just her hair, and slightly hips. Ha 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 ha. Naruto laughed when white wheels of flame appeared around Kaneko. So that is what you've been working on, a new form to increase your power. I see, you are causing your body to grow by fusing natural energy to your life force, are you serious? Naruto asked her with a deadpan stare. She started to grope her own bee. She blushed. I wanted to make myself older. Kaneko, you're almost 16, your body is not going to look like this by getting older. You're already gone through puberty. You're the same height and your body has barely changed. I like the long hair a little, but all you've changed is your boob size. Having bigger B doesn't make you older, it just means you have big B. Naruto deadpanned her at the lie she was telling herself. I wanted bigger B. Why? Naruto asked her in confusion. One of the most beautiful people I've known is even flatter than you were. Everyone around me has big B, but you are right, if this is me when I'm older, then I don't have a lot to look forward to. Kaneko stood up and measured herself against Naruto. She was the same height as before. Her clothes felt tighter, so she filled them out more, but that was the extent of her growth. Even then, while she snapped her bra, her panties didn't even feel that much tighter. Her older form that she wanted to use was pretty much the exact same as the body that she already had. She felt a lot stronger though, like she experienced an explosive growth in power, and she felt that she had unlocked her other Nekashu abilities. So how do they look? Kaneko enhanced her bust size with her older form. She was curious about Naruto's opinion. They look the same as before, just bigger. I really don't care how big your are, you still look like Kaneko to me. Naruto rubbed the top of her head. He really couldn't care less about the size of her chest, since overall, it was a pretty minor detail. I'm not interested in how long it will take them. Naruto started to speak as Kaneko returned back to normal with a pout. To accept their hidden selves. Naruto looked at both Akeno and Zenobia as they meditated. He was also watching them inside of his soul, multitasking by having part of his mind in the real world and part of his mind in his soul. Being a Jinchuriki had trained him in being both inside himself and outside himself at the same time. Are you actually going to have sex with Zenobia if she succeeds in her training? Hell no, I don't want to have children with a girl who doesn't love me. Anyway, the woman I love just died like 2 years ago. You were in love? Kaneko asked in shock, having not expected that from him. She was happy with his answer, but she was surprised by the fact he was experienced with love. Wait, you were attracted to a woman who was smaller than me? Kaneko asked in even more shock. Boob size at least, she had smaller b than you, but she was taller than you, and not as petite. Naruto rubbed the top of her head, thinking of Sakura. Actually, other than being short, you're more attractive than Sakura was. Bigger b, bigger but your waist is more petite. Naruto laughed. Sakura couldn't punch him. He could say whatever he wanted about his ex-teammate and she wasn't in a position where she could attack him for it. Wow, so you were in love with a flat girl. Actually, she was my first crush. She wasn't the girl I was in love with. That would be Hinata and she was just a beautiful woman. She was kind and giving. She was willing to sacrifice for others and just had a good heart. She was very quiet, she didn't speak a lot and was just happy to be around people. Naruto explained Hinata with a lot more detail than Sakura and his focus was a lot different. Wow, she sounds amazing. Kaneko didn't feel the need to compete with a dead girl. The way Naruto was talking about Hinata was a lot more pure of heart than the way he talked about Sakura. While he talked about Sakura's body, he was talking about Hinata's heart, which showed where his focus was. It also gave her insight into Naruto as a person, that to him, being in love with your partner was more important than being attracted to them. The way she saw a light reflected in his eyes as he looked up at the moon. You see, Hinata had a strength to her. Her hands were small, but they had this strength to them, and she was strong too, but her hands were really gentle. Naruto had a happy sadness to his voice as he explained his lost love. It was weird for Kaneko, but she smiled. He seemed genuinely happy to remember this woman, and even though she was gone, he was just happy remembering her. He had accepted her death and took solace in remembering the good traits about her. And her b. They were massive, but honestly, she usually wore baggy clothes that did a great job hiding them. I would say they were about Akeno's size or larger when she wasn't wearing super baggy clothes, but like I said, she hid her b most of the time. Naruto never really got to see Hinata's b, so they were among the list of reasons why he was attracted to her. Between her baggy jackets all of the time and the rare armored vest she wore during the war, he rarely had a reason to be attracted to her chest size or even notice her chest size. He just knew that Hinata was nearly as large as Tsunade and Tsunade had a bust size of 106 centimeters with a waist even smaller than Akeno's waist. Still, b that were hidden from the world as well not exist at all when determining how attractive a person was. She had such huge b and she didn't show them off. Kaneko was even more shocked at that. Just how modest and gentle was this woman? She had such giant weapons and she kept them hidden from the world. She knew that if she had b that big, she would show the hell out of them. She would have her cleavage showing and wear clothes that showed off her tits. There was no way that she would keep them hidden like that. Do you really don't care about boob size at all, do you? Kaneko stepped back in sheer surprise. His first crush was a flat chest. His lost love liked to hide her large chest. It was almost like Naruto didn't care about a woman's chest size at all when deciding if he was attracted to her or not. Kaneko just had trouble accepting that there were guys who didn't judge a woman by their chest. I don't really care how big a woman's tits are if I don't like the woman attached to them. Women can't control how big their b are, so it's kind of super shallow to judge them by it. Naruto rubbed the back of his head at that. So are fat. I'm not into fat girls, sorry, but a girl can't control having small b, but a woman can control being fat. I like athletic and warrior bodies, girls who put in hard work and effort into their figure anyway. Go back into that new form. Let's spar to see just how much your form increases your combat power. Naruto changed the topic and took up a fighting stance. Kaneko nodded. She entered her new form and she pulled her bra out from her shirt and tossed it to the ground with a sigh of relief. Don't hold back and don't worry about Akeno or Zenobia, I'll protect them while we spar. Naruto told Kaneko with a grin. Kaneko nodded. Time to get serious with her training. What if Naruto is sent to High School DxD? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.